A lot of Cornish people are murderers. They are. I don't know what you're laughing at. It's true.
Welcome to a sparkling new podcast from Mike Parry and Mike Graham. We're the two Mikes.
Actually, it sounds even better when you do it Dullsville, because when you try to be happy and excited and energetic, you sound pathetic.
Thanks.
Solenum alba nozzolilili. Oh, the bridges.
This is TalkSport. We are the two Mikes, and it's time to say a very good morning to Mr. Mike Porky Parry. Very good morning to you, Mr. Parry.
Well, it'd be a better morning if you hadn't interrupted my medicinal treatment earlier on.
I mean, I have to say I was somewhat shocked to see what I saw in the kitchen with you and all your various kind of accoutrements. There was all kinds of, weird-looking contractions, things going on, shouting, groaning, moaning, a towel over your head.
I needed a deep, long breather, 3 minutes over a bowl of boiling water and eucalyptus.
That's the sort of things you do in the privacy of your own home.
No, it's not. How can I do that? I had to do it within minutes of us starting on the show here tonight. Really? I'm in the middle of it. You suddenly come along, whip the towel off my head. Therefore, I lose the compactness that I need around the eucalyptus bowl, and suddenly start making jokes and finding it very amusing that some people can only get through life with the help of, with the help of assistant drugs,
if you're not well, you don't have to come into work.
Pills,
no, if
potions.
You're not well, you're so terrified of taking any time off that you're coming into work ill, coughing all over the place, giving other people infections.
Have I coughed? Have I coughed yet?
Well, you haven't yet coughed, but you spent all night coughing.
No.
You coughed all the way through the show last night.
And that's why I've done something about it. I went to see the doctor this morning.
Oh, good.
Got myself some
very
strong pills.
It'd be easier if they put you down.
I'm not going to respond to that sort of nonsense. Anyway, fortunately...
So the Porky Plague is being fought, anyway.
Fortunately, somebody was on hand to record all this. Yeah. I have now had that posted on the website, and it's on Two Mikes TV, and I'd like our audience to have a quick look at it, please, during the course of this show, and come back and give me a verdict on the despicable behaviour of old MG. Now, I'm going to pay you a compliment, OK?
Oh, thank you very much.
I thought that phrase you just used, we're forever throwing bottles.
It's good, isn't it?
Pretty bottles at Man U. They fly so high. Yeah, I mean, I'm afraid...
It's not just
I'm afraid
the bottles.
that will be the overwhelming image now of the last night.
Well, it will, unfortunately. I mean, like I said, this was meant to be a night of history. It was meant to be a great night where West Ham fans were able to say a pleasant goodbye to a wonderful stadium. And instead, it's been ruined by, depending on who you listen to, a small minority of fans outside the ground chucking balls at the bus. But not just outside the ground, because inside the ground, De Gea was having plastic bottles hurled at him as well.
Apparently, I didn't see any of that.
So, I mean, it wasn't just outside the ground that some of this stuff was going on.
Yeah, well, I mean, to start off with, of course it was a minority. If it was 100 people and there were 34,500 people inside the stadium, probably another 5,000 outside, 100 out of 40,000 is a tiny minority.
It is.
Let's get that clear.
It is.
And when
but it's a very, very strong image of a tiny minority, unfortunately.
I was about to come to that. I mean, when our old colleague Darren Lewis from the Mirror was on earlier, I couldn't understand what he was trying to say. He was trying to tell Jason Cundy, no, it wasn't a minority.
Yeah.
Well, until it becomes over 20,000, mate, it is a minority.
Yeah.
And if it's 100, it's a tiny minority.
Exactly, yeah.
And I don't know why he started saying it wasn't. But anyway, that's by the by. Excuse me. The point of the story is that, sadly, that now is an overwhelming image. I heard some guy come on and talk about, the fans were crushed up and all that kind of stuff. Now, do you remember a couple of years ago, Liverpool were on the brink of perhaps winning the Premier League under Brendan Rodgers?
I do.
They had a similar situation outside Anfield from 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Literally thousands of people got themselves outside Anfield without tickets to the game.
Right.
And there wasn't any trouble.
No.
Because Liverpool are a club who are used to those sort of, moments of drama that have
but is it not the case that
patchworked their history for the past 50 years? And the only point I'm going to make, Mike, just before you interrupt, the only point I'm going to make is that I've been, watching the last rites of the bowling for at least 10 days.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, Mark Nolan, apart from being a professional footballer... I said Mark Nolan, so did Andy Goldstein. Yeah. Mark Noble, apart from being a professional footballer, has been a full-time ambassador for the club for about the last 10 days. He has done he's done a magnificent job. Yeah. So many interviews, so many talks, so many public appearances, representing all sorts of groups and all that kind of stuff. Fantastic job. However, when, again, I think it was Dan earlier on, said, West Ham's PR people have done a magnificent job and they closed it. It got over-egged in the end, and in the end, everybody got so overexcited.
Yeah, do you think that's part of the problem here?
Well, they all got around the ground, it was the last game, we haven't got a ticket to get in, everybody else is, here comes the United coach, we're frustrated. Excuse me.
You said you weren't going to be doing any coughing.
Well, you didn't let me do the eucalyptus.
Don't blame me for interrupting you.
It is your fault.
It is your whining fault. And moaning and groaning into this towel.
But anyway, so the fans are all there. They've got nowhere to go. So they see the United coach come and
but what, a group
of yobbos, that's all they can be described as, start hurling bottles at it.
I mean, and you're perfectly right. Everything you said is correct. And yes, it was all made up into some ridiculous kind of fervour-like atmosphere. But why on earth do we then say things like what you've just said, which is, so they were all outside the ground and then the United coach turns up, as if it's the United coach's fault that it's come in front of these people.
No, of course it's not.
And the only possible kind of reaction they could have is to hurl bottles at it
and
smash the windows.
Don't know.
Why do football fans have to do that?
Well, they're not football fans, really.
Of course they are.
No, they're local.
That's rubbish. That is rubbish. I don't buy that.
Well, do you think that those people actually ended up inside the ground?
The point is that football has just been associated with this for a long time, right?
Sure it does.
When I used to go to football an awful lot as a kid, it was like that all the time.
Yeah.
And I know that it's been eradicated to a large extent, but there was a lot more violence out there in football than there was ever reported.
Well, I mean,
did you see there was a big massive punch up between Everton and Manchester United fans before the semi-final at Wembley when they all met up in a service stop somewhere on the M6?
Yeah, well, that was.
But it happens every week.
Well, it doesn't. Well, I'm not sure it happens every week.
It does.
But anyway, the point is, I mean, you'd be delighted to know that one of my main briefs and one of my greatest achievements when I was at the FA was to eradicate
violence. One of your
violence.
Greatest achievements
was to eradicate violence between football
Wasn't it
fans.
while you were at the FA that the game in Dublin had to be suspended?
Well, I sorted the problem.
Postponed.
I sorted the problem.
Well, no, that happened while you were at the FA.
No, you don't understand. If I had not got in there as quickly as I did, I think that diplomatic relationships between the Republic of Ireland and England could have been broken off.
That may well have
been. I got in there, went up to see the Taoiseach, excuse me, and you
got left behind by everybody else at the FA, who decided that you would be a good, sort of lick-spittle scapegoat to leave there to try and sort it all out.
I think you'll find what you're saying there is that my diplomatic skills were so well honed that I was the guy who stayed behind, went to meet the Irish Prime Minister, who's called the Taoiseach. Tony, my great friend, Tony.
Tony Adams?
No, not Tony Adams. He used to play for Chelsea and...
Tony Cascarino.
Tony Cascarino, right.
Great mate of yours.
Yeah, great mate.
When was the last time you saw him?
Tony? Excuse me. About 4 months ago.
No.
I did a Clash of the Titans with him.
Clash of the Titans?
Yeah, you know what Clash of the Titans is, do you?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, you don't work on it, do you?
No, I don't watch it.
No, that's right. No. Well, I was doing a Clash of the Titans.
No, I don't want to work on it, thanks.
But Tony once told me a story that they were all in the dressing room after an Ireland game and this fella came in who they didn't recognise because most of them were English or played in England. That's a bit unfair to say they were English. They were Irish, of course, but they played in English leagues. And
why are we talking about you now?
Well, we're not talking about Tony Cascarino.
We're talking about you.
Talking about Cascarino. And one of the guys said, "Who's that over there?" And whoever it wasn't Tony, said to Tony, "Don't know," but apparently he owns a tea shop. Because he was the Taoiseach, which is the Prime Minister of Ireland.
Oh, right.
Well, they didn't quite understand.
Right.
But anyway, that's another story.
So you've taken all this time to get to a tea shop joke?
Well, that's right, yeah, because I stopped almost civil war happening between Ireland and England,
Yeah, all right. Now, what I'm going to urge everyone to do is to take a little pause, go on to Too Much TV or check the Too Much Twitter. You can see Porky's preparations for the show.
Which would have gone perfectly had you not interrupted. I'm now in trouble again.
Which are ludicrous, right?
No, I'm going to have a really difficult 3 hours again.
And not only that, they didn't work anyway because you're still coughing and spluttering your guts up. Also, there's lots of West Ham fans that want to get on, so we will get some of you on as
Indeed.
well. 08717 22 33 444. This is TalkSport.
TalkSport on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM.
Freedom for sport.
Can we kick it? Yes, we can. TalkSport.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on TalkSport and Talk Radio.
Never know how much I love you. Never know how much I care. When you put your arms around me, I get a fever that's so hard to bear. You give me fever when you kiss me, fever when you hold me tight.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. It is, of course, Ask Porky coming up tonight. We've already got lots of great questions, some of which may or may not refer to your illness and your plague. What did the doctor say to you anyway? How long have we got to put up with this nonsense?
Well, I've been given a course of tablets, which are very strong, powerful things. Don't know what they do.
What do you mean strong and powerful? What are they, morphine tablets?
No. They're not painkillers. Yeah. They are designed to eradicate the poisonous bug I have in my chest.
Yeah. With regard to that, I was going to say Henry. Ernie says, "How dare you stop Mike Parry from boiling his head under a towel? Next
exactly.
time, think about the listeners, please."
Yeah, exactly. That's just about it, actually. What's that guy's name?
His name's Ernie.
Got it in one, Ernie.
Yeah, very true. Now, we've got lots of West Ham fans who want to talk,
Let's talk
about
to them.
what was going on. Let's talk to Melinda, first of all, who was at the game. Melinda, very good morning to you.
Good morning to both of you as well.
Thank you very much for calling. What would you like to say?
Well, I want to say that I was there from about 4 o'clock.
Right.
And there was hardly any police around, where you would expect the police, especially against Man U. It's a big game.
Yeah.
There was vans you saw, but you didn't see the police presence on the streets.
Are you saying there was less police than there would have been for, say, a normal Saturday game?
Yeah.
Really?
Because normally, you saw a few policemen walking around, a few, and then you saw a few on horseback. But normally you see them dotted everywhere, and I couldn't see them. And I'm a season ticket holder, so I'm there every other week.
Yeah, but remember, Melinda, you're nearly 4 hours before kick-off, so make it the equivalent of 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning, 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning for a 3 o'clock kick-off. You wouldn't expect to see a huge police presence, would you?
I went back to the car at 7 o'clock to get something just before my husband went in. I went back to the car, and I still couldn't see any policemen around. And I'm walking along outside the stadium, and yes, there was police vans parked either side, but you didn't see the police. And then somebody said, "Oh, the traffic's really bad down at the bowling." And I said, "What did they expect?"
Yeah, exactly.
I said, Newham Council and West Ham and the police have known about this match 4 months.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, we've been reading articles in papers about the last game at the Boleyn for months on end. I mean,
we have,
surely they could have organised it better.
Well, exactly, and so they knew that there was going to be a big big public presence. They also knew that there was going to be, if we've now sold 55,000 or 52,000 season tickets, they knew that those fans are going to want to come and say goodbye to the ground.
Yeah.
Sure.
So wouldn't you think that being, this is a woman's head, maybe shut some roads off, maybe put an alcohol ban in the immediate area.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
But Melinda, do you know what I think happened? You tell me if you got the same feeling. I think, everybody assumed that, because we've made a great big party of this, it's going to be a goodwill night. Everybody's going to be in a good mood. We won't need any policemen.
You're going to get an idiot that starts drinking at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And I used to work as a steward.
I'm sitting next to one, Melinda.
Excuse me, please. Go on, yeah.
But what I'm saying is, I used to work as a steward, and there were people that had got into the ground that shouldn't have even been let in the turnstiles.
What, you mean because they were over the odds already?
They couldn't stand, they were stumbling, and you're thinking, how the hell did you get through the turnstile?
Yeah.
Well, surely West Ham must take some responsibility for this then.
Yes, they should, but they should also take, not necessarily West Ham, but some of the stewards they shipped in a lot of stewards that aren't necessarily as well trained as they should be. A lot of them are young lads that have just finished from work. That's another thing. I mean, Andy and that was saying that the turnstiles didn't open and West Ham was really bad. But what they're forgetting is a lot of the stewards have got day jobs. Mm-hmm. Now, they have to get to Upton Park just the same as everybody else.
Yeah.
Now, if they're not finishing work till 5:30, 6:15, they're not going to get to Upton Park till about 6:30.
Well, then they shouldn't be being employed, Melinda. But if you need the stewards to be there at 6 o'clock, then you can't have anyone that can't get there before 6. Isn't that common sense?
Exactly. But they brought a load of stewards in that don't necessarily know the rules. They don't know the fans. So they then aren't doing their job properly, which then, not being funny, they let it slip in through the net. I mean...
Yeah. Now, Melinda, you know the layout of the ground, right? You know the layout of the ground. So the people who threw the bottles and the bricks at the Manchester United coach, from what perspective would you say, well, they could have been anybody in the area, in the locality?
They could have been anybody, but they could have been neutral fans that had come down, because there was a lot of neutral fans there tonight. Yeah. We had people walking around in Bolton Wanderers. I saw a badge. There was somebody with Nottingham Forest top. Not being funny, there might have even been some Millwall supporters.
Well, of course they could.
Anyway,
they could.
How can you say they are West Ham fans?
Well, you can't. I don't think you can. Yeah.
Well, I mean, on the balance of probability, Melinda, they are West Ham fans. I don't think you can say that they're likely not to be.
I'm not saying they're not, but I'm just saying they're the minority. But also, you've now got to look at it. I mean, my husband's just seen it on Facebook. that the Man United players, they were so scared. They were sitting on the bus.
That seemed to be amused, actually.
About it. They were laughing and joking and making fun of it.
Yeah.
Which I don't get me wrong, I don't condone it. If I saw my son, who's 22, doing anything like that, he'd have got a clip round the ear hole.
He did, indeed.
And he would have been told. And the same for him. And I said to him, I don't want you going on the pitch. And I was trying to stop people from acting like idiots.
Yes.
You know, because I used to work there. I'm a mum, so I do what I can. But you had too many young fellas that had been drinking since 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock.
That's always the thing.
It seems a shame, it seems a shame that what could have been a fantastic night of football, which it was, and a great night of history...
Is now marred.
Unfortunately. Melinda, but a lovely call. Thank you very much indeed for all that information. Let's talk to Dave, who's at the game as well. Dave, very good morning to you.
Hello, good morning to you.
Yeah, what would you like to say, Dave?
I'm just looking at Facebook as I'm talking to you, and I was watching this as it unfolded, and it was an absolute disgrace. One thing I want to start on a positive, if I can. I really want to applaud and praise the Manchester United fans that were in the stadium. At half-time, with some of the celebrations we had going on, we actually had an in memoriam where we was sort of giving thanks to some of the players that had passed away. And all the supporters were clapping, along with our supporters. And the sheer things that were going on, their fans were absolutely brilliant, and it made me feel twice as embarrassed for what I saw outside.
What did you see outside then, Dave? In your view, who were throwing the bottles?
They were West Ham. There was a lot of West Ham fans.
You think so? Yeah.
Yeah, lots of drinking going on. First of all, there's beach balls being kicked about and thrown through the air, so that was all sort of good fun. And then there was alcohol being thrown up. Then it turned into bottles. Then it turned into cans. Yeah. It just got out of control.
I mean, somebody had whipped it up into a huge party, hadn't they? And it became a street party, really, for that part of East London, didn't it? And everybody was joining in, even if they didn't have a ticket to go to the game.
But with the previous caller, I think the authorities do have a lot to answer for. I mean, we couldn't believe that Manchester coach was coming in as late as it did, up through that thoroughfare. I mean, the Swansea game the weekend, we saw lots of supporters round this area again, not as much as we're seeing here. I actually got caught in the crush going to the ground. That one of the,
well, it sounds to me, I mean, like the game was delayed, right, by, 90 minutes in the end because of everything that was going on. You know, considering the amount of planning and preparation that has been going into this event, because it was an event, it wasn't just a game of football. They had stuff going on after the game, taxis going onto the pitch and all of this. I mean, was somebody at West Ham forgetting about what was going on before the game, that there was a football match to be organised?
Well, I think there'd be lots of questions answered tomorrow, what with the local police, the football stadium. There's a lot of mistakes been made here. And I think we could have seen a catastrophe. There was police vans as well as parked cars parked in Green Street, which made some of the passageways very narrow. People were getting crushed, kids were screaming, people were lifting children up above adults' heads and saying, stop pushing, and you just couldn't help it. People were just being forced along. It was an awful situation, and I'm in the 50s, and some of it was quite scary where the crushing was going on. And I've never seen that amount of people there. And it wasn't just people.
And what were the police doing, Dave? Because we had Melinda on earlier saying she didn't think there were enough police. I mean, what was your view of that?
Well, this particular van that's parked in the middle of the road, it had an officer sitting in it, and people were shouting at him, get the van out the way, people are getting crushed. He didn't have nowhere to go, but he didn't make no response. It was an awkward situation, it really was.
Horrible. Well, listen, Dave, you're 50 years old. You probably remember what it was like in the 70s, in the bad old days, when that sort of thing was a weekly occurrence and it happened all the time.
Indeed.
And, I mean, it certainly seems to me that West Ham have got quite a lot of questions to answer here as to how well they prepared for this night of so-called history.
Well, I think it's just the whipping up of the frenzy of the night, you know what I mean? And it was like, laissez-faire.
Well, no, but you can't have something like this happen. Prepare for it. Do interviews all over the place on every single media, whether it's television, radio. David Gold, David Sullivan have been talking about it for 2 months. Talking about Slaven Bilic, talking about how we won't be able to create this atmosphere when we go to the new stadium. Let's hope not. Let's hope they won't be throwing any more bottles at people at the new stadium.
As I say, Mark Noble, day in, day out, has been a magnificent ambassador for the club. You know, and I think in a way he's kept everything in check, in line. But I mean, he can't be patrolling the streets outside the ground, can he? can he?
I mean, there might also be questions to be asked for the people who make the fixtures in these situations, where you say, well, was it wise to have the final game at the Boleyn Ground on a Tuesday evening?
Well, that was due to circumstances, wasn't it? Because the reason it was scheduled was because of the commitments of the two clubs prior to last night's fixture.
But I mean, perhaps that should have been thought about as well, because maybe
it can't be. It's too late in the season to put it anywhere else.
Well, you say that, but I mean, lots of things can always be changed.
No, they can't. If there's no dates left to play the game, I'm afraid they can't.
I'm afraid something should have been changed, because doing it on a Tuesday night, we're hearing from the fans that the stewards were late, the police were not there in time, people were being let into the ground drunk, there was melees going on outside. I mean, you've seen what's happened. It's a disgusting state of affairs.
Hang on. Thousands of games take place on a Tuesday and Wednesday night at bigger stadiums than West Ham. They don't have problems. The preparation was wrong.
That's
that was
true.
all.
The preparation was wrong. Exactly right. And so nobody knows who's going to be told that they're going to take the blame on this one. But we're going to talk to Shaka Hislop later on about his memories of Upton Park.
Indeed.
I mean, he wasn't actually there, but I mean, it just seems a shame, because it was a great game of football, and Manchester United, as a result, now have got no longer in their own hands whether they get into the top four. No. And there's lots of things to talk to about that.
Yeah, there is.
But we can't get to the football.
Can you imagine West Ham facing some kind of a charge for crowd control, and that would have to apply to any restrictions on their new stadium rather than their old stadium?
I mean, people have already said, could it be that they would be told they have to play behind closed doors or some nonsense? I can't believe that would happen.
That would be a ridiculous overreaction to what was really a melee outside, which fortunately nobody got hurt in, and I think somebody got an injury near as a security officer or something.
Well, you say that, but you listened to our last caller who said it was very frightening. Well, children were in terrible states. Women were having to be.
I know, but you're over-dramatising it.
No, I'm not.
Yes,
you are. It's not very well for you to say, nobody got hurt, it's no big deal. Absolute nonsense.
No, you're talking like a tabloid journalist now. It could have been
you're accusing me of talking. No, I'm not saying it could have been a catastrophe.
It wasn't a catastrophe. That's the point.
I'm saying that it should have been a night of history for West Ham.
Yes.
It is now going to be remembered as this ridiculous situation where bottles were thrown.
It'd be the Battle of Green Street, wasn't it?
It's not about the football.
Did it happen in Green Street?
Green Street.
I
think it did.
The Battle of Green Street. That's what it'll be known as.
You accuse me of somehow behaving like a tabloid journalist.
Well, you are. You're bellowing
far and away.
It could have been a lot worse. Could have been a lot worse.
I'm not saying it could have been a lot worse. I'm saying that it was very bad.
No, come on, calm down.
I'm saying that it was very bad. I am getting irate because I'm getting sick to death of you making up stories about what I've been saying. I'm not saying it could have got a lot worse.
Don't worry, the audience have heard what you're saying.
Yeah, they have heard. Yeah. And I'm telling you that it was a bad situation. You're now trying to apologise because of all your mates down at West Ham you don't want to upset.
No, that's a very astute observation. It was a bad situation. Well, I think if you're sitting on a coach and bottles are smashing through the window, that is a bad situation.
I'm not talking about Manchester United. I'm talking about the people who were trapped. I'm talking about the kids that were in bad places.
You don't care about kids because you haven't got any.
I'm not inflaming anything. This is Talk Sport.
Calm.
Talk Sport, we are the two mics. Of course, it will be Ask Porky coming up a little bit later on. We'll get into the winners and losers conversation as well, which we haven't had yet. But,
no, we haven't had time for that.
We haven't had time. There's just been too much going on. A couple of texts to read out. Gentleman, says somebody without a name. Can we stop looking for people to blame for tonight's events? Lack of police and kick-off times are no excuse for gangs of idiots causing mayhem and behaving like animals. I think that's absolutely true. Let's talk to Phil, who's a Man United fan on his way home from the game. Phil, a very good morning to you.
Hello there, yes.
Yeah, hi, what would you like to tell us?
I'd just like to say I'm getting annoyed with Mike there, just trying to make excuses all the time.
Yeah, I know.
The West Ham fans tonight were an absolute disgrace.
Yeah.
When United went 2-1 ahead, there was bottles thrown at the United fans, there was coins thrown. The lad in front of me got his head cut open with a bottle.
That's terrible.
There was West Ham fans allowed in the United end.
Yeah.
But the stewards didn't want to do anything about it, but when the United fans moaned about this, it was the United fans being thrown out.
Mm-hmm.
The steward in tonight was just... They didn't have a clue what to do.
Are you a regular traveller with United, Phil?
Yeah, home and away.
And do you have this sort of problem at other grounds?
The only other time I've come across any trouble this season was West Ham away in the Cup.
Oh, what? Really?
Yeah, because you've been at West Ham a couple of times, haven't you? Did you have your daughter with you, Phil?
The Colts got chased down the road last time with no police escort or anything.
Yeah.
Did you have your daughter with you, Phil?
Yeah, my daughter was with me, yeah.
Yeah.
there was coins thrown, was just missed there on the head. She was ducking and diving. She actually missed the equalising goal.
Yeah, what were the stewards doing?
So she's actually ducking and diving to avoid being hit by a coin.
Yeah.
And what were the stewards doing? What were the stewards doing, Phil? Were there not was there a line of stewards between yourself and the West Ham United fans?
There was one line of stewards between them.
Yeah.
The coins were coming from above. There was no stewards above us.
Yeah, that's strange. I mean, in the sense that it seems pretty unregulated around the visiting fans, which is usually very well monitored.
Even at the end of the game,
yeah,
there was grief. They were supposed to be going there to celebrate the St. Charter of the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, once that had happened to the United coach, I couldn't believe that the United football coaches with the fans on didn't have a police escort tonight either.
Yeah.
I cannot believe it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's one of the reasons they're moving from West Ham to the Olympic Stadium because, it's a place where it's very difficult to get around. When you've got that many people, when you've got the roads, that congested, it's very, very difficult to get in or out of the place. I mean, that is part of the problem. But I believe it did have a police escort for them. It was just
the team coach did.
It was just that they couldn't move.
Phil was talking about supporters' coaches.
All right.
Supporters' coaches after what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, isn't it ridiculous that in 2016 that you would need to have a police escort to go to a football match?
Well, not really.
Hang on,
other parts
I'm
of the world
asking
it does.
Phil.
I'm telling you.
We don't live in other parts of the world. Phil, isn't it ridiculous?
It is ridiculous, really, but West Ham is just notorious for it.
Okay.
Probably West Ham and Chelsea are probably the only two sides where you probably wouldn't need the escort.
Let me ask you a football question, Phil. Now that Man United have lost, what hopes for getting into the top four?
None.
You reckon?
Well, you could be lucky. You might have a miracle on the weekend. You get a better result than City, and you're there. So you better, get your prayer mat out.
I want back United to beat Bournemouth the way we play at the moment.
Yeah, oh dear me.
Doesn't sound good. Well, it sounds like a bit of a tough old night for you, Phil. But thanks very much for calling up.
Yeah, you see the speculation about Pochettino was emerged again.
Seeing Sir Alex Ferguson. Yeah, that is interesting, isn't it?
Well, it is interesting. It's all very well for Spurs to issue statements saying, no, everybody knew about it. Well, I'll tell you what, if I was Mr. Pochettino's boss, I would ban him from going to see Sir Alex Ferguson, who's a very charismatic man.
Well, he is. I mean, there are lots of people that you would want him to have lunch with, but Sir Alex Ferguson, if you're the boss of Tottenham, would not be one of them.
Exactly.
Let's take one final call on this. Barry, West Ham fan. Barry, very good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, what would you like to say, Barry?
Yeah, I'm driving home from the game. I mean, I got into Green Street about 6:30 tonight, and I'm just getting a little bit nervous off now. There was people throwing bottles around, but they weren't West Ham fans. They were
agents provocateurs, shipped in especially by people who don't like West Ham. Have you gone mad, Barry?
No, I don't think they were agent. I'm not saying that they don't like West Ham. All I'm saying is that there's youngsters that are not predominantly West Ham fans and definitely not season ticket holders. I'm a season ticket holder. I've been for the last 2 years, every single game, and they were not fans that you see. They weren't fans. They were just people.
Well,
that
what about our last caller, Barry?
Our
last caller, who's a Man United fan, who says the only time he's seen anything like it was the last time he went to West Ham.
Right. Well, I'm in the Bobby Moore. I'm in.
Did you see anyone throwing coins, Barry?
No, because they're obviously in the Trevor Brookings stand. So that's the.
So are they not West Ham fans? Are they not West Ham fans either?
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that they're not. I didn't see that. All I'm commenting on is what I've seen and what I saw in Green Street. What I saw around.
Who were these people then? Who were these people, Barry?
I don't know. They weren't West Ham. They weren't. They weren't West Ham fans.
How do you know they're not West Ham fans?
There was no colours on them. There was no. Because they just, they're not. They were lads that were out for a night out.
Well, we thought we'd just go down to West Ham and throw a few coins.
I do blame. No, hang on. I blame West Ham in some respects for this because of the advertising of the game they've done. They have made a big thing about it. Unfortunately, the game had to be tonight. It could not have been changed because of the FA Cup quarter-final between ourselves and everything else. There was no other date it could have been. You've got, United was in the Europa League, whatever else. It had to be tonight. But there should have been, they've made games earlier. They've made games 7 o'clock games. We've had a couple at West Ham because it was clashing with Champions League and everything else. They knew that they were going to do something after the game. It should have been made earlier. There should have been a bigger police presence. There was a lot more stewards there tonight than there's ever been at West Ham. And they're not regular stewards. They're not regular stewards. Now, have West Ham got them in from other football clubs? They should have done.
Well, we don't know. We don't know. I mean, if there was clearly going to be a great number of people outside the ground, so, excuse me, the main priority, main objective of the authorities was to control the numbers in the small streets around West Ham United, and that fundamentally appears not to have been done. Barry, we're grateful to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Barry, thanks very much indeed. Maybe we should start some kind of massive investigation as to who these amazingly, unknown people are.
I love the old Argent Provocateur name, because that evokes to me the 17th century, when I tell you...
The men sort of dressed in black.
Yeah, start a revolution, let's go around.
Yeah,
and,
they've been planning it for years.
Yeah, let's dress up as Plantagenets and go around and step far to people's houses, you know what I mean?
Well, this is the thing. The fact that they weren't wearing West Ham colours does not mean anything.
No,
I mean, it's this guy never heard of the Casuals. I mean, Casuals never wore the colours of the team that they supported, so they could get into fights.
The world's best hooligans never identified themselves as to who they were, and that's why they used to beat you to a pulp and then throw a card down on your prostrate body which said, "Congratulations, you've just been visited by the ICF, the intercity firm."
Yeah, exactly.
That's the sort of thing they used to do.
Exactly, and I mean, it's a bit coincidental, is it not, that Man United fan who rang in, and many people who have said this about West Ham in the past, is, West Ham have got a bit of a reputation. I mean, it's not as if, it would be the most unlikely place for there to be violence.
Yeah. What I find is really odd is that there was a game at West Ham United tonight. There were tens of thousands of West Ham United fans outside the ground. Manchester United's coach gets bricked and bottled.
Yeah.
And people are saying, well, it probably wasn't Manchester, probably wasn't West Ham United fans.
No, of course
not.
not.
It's like saying, if the match had taken place in Newcastle, it wouldn't be Newcastle United fans,
absolutely not.
Mad,
No, of course not. Don't even ridiculous. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, the kind of hypocrisy and ludicrous kind of blinkered vision.
Why would anybody go to West Ham tonight?
That is exhibited by some football fans.
Maybe it was a group of Chelsea fans who were just having a drink after work and thought, hey, guess what? The Manchester United coach should be outside West Ham tonight. Why don't we get up there and brick it? I mean, it hasn't happened in all the other 38 games that have happened this season.
But also,
why should it happen tonight?
There's no other kind of sporting sort of endeavour which has so many people unable to not only tell the truth, but see the truth.
Yes.
They can't actually allow themselves to understand that these would be people who are like them, who support a football team, who are just not very nice. They're hooligans, but they are West Ham fans, and they shouldn't be allowed to do it. Who knows what's going to happen the next time West Ham have a game at the Olympic Stadium? This is Talk Sport.
On DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM.
A terrific performance.
Turn of pace and eye for goal.
Shout about it.
Talk Sport.
Yep. How about this from Dave? He said, just watched the Poorly Porky video. What a bloody wimp. Hilarious.
What?
He's called you a wimp.
I'm not a wimp.
Yeah, you are.
I'm battling against, extreme illness.
You've got a cold.
I've got a very bad cold.
Really?
And I've got my dodgy heart. Only 1/3 of my heart works.
No, 49% of your heart works.
You don't know the pressure that puts on your heart when you're...
49% of it works.
When you've got chronic congestion of the lungs, which is what I've got.
You've got chronic congestion of the brain.
That's why the doc gave me extra strong, powerful tablets, which you've got to be very, tough to take.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
You're about as tough as a 3-year-old. This is Talk Sport. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. Coming up a little bit later on, it's Ask Porky, of course. We will... Are you sure you don't want to have the winners and losers result? Because you seemed very keen on it last week.
No, I don't think it's relevant now.
You don't think it's relevant?
No.
Well, of course it's relevant. An awful lot of people have voted in it. So
right, okay.
I don't think they deserve to know what the result was.
All right, well, I don't mind if you want to...
Because we've also extended the game until the end of the Euros. Which means that, this is only the next step in what is going to be a few weeks. I have to say, even I was surprised by the margin of victory in this particular episode. 1,328 votes cast, and the score at midnight, when it was recorded, was 60% to 40%, which I think is the biggest winning margin of all time. Do you realise what that is as a sort of... a percentage, as it were, of the... it's almost twice as much, isn't it?
No.
How much more is it?
1/3.
1/3 more.
Yeah.
So it's quite a lot, isn't it? Because normally it's like 51-49 or 52-48, something like that.
They're just
53-47.
These are just figures.
Yeah,
these are just figures.
So I have to say, 60% to me, 40% to you. So I'm afraid you've been well and truly stuffed.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Yeah?
No, I wouldn't say that. No.
Well, you've never won by that mortgage. By that, not
by that mortgage.
But not by that
I haven't
mortgage.
got a mortgage, actually.
You
got a mortgage? No.
No, I haven't. No. You haven't got any mortgages?
I haven't got mortgages, no.
Really? So all the property that you own outright?
Oh, well, I don't want to get into that now. See, you spend your life trying to make out that I'm some sort of slum landlord who owns property. I'm not.
With no mortgage.
It's an absolute outrage, honestly.
With no mortgage.
Absolute outrage.
I'm just going to keep using word association to get these secrets out
I
of you.
was going to say to you that whilst, even if we accept that the people throwing the bottles were not Manchester United fans, I mean, for instance...
Well, they certainly weren't Manchester United fans.
No, West Ham United fans.
Yeah.
For instance, I'm looking at all the pictures tomorrow. You see this one here where the bus got attacked?
Yeah.
There's a load of East Ham Butchers signs on the other side. Perhaps there's a load of East Ham Butchers.
He might have been. Not happy that they weren't able to sell their meat before it went off. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. O'Hara says this. Paul Porky reminds me of Crocodile Dundee scene. Crocodile Dundee scene? Was there a scene when Crocodile Dundee had that big sort of cloth over his head?
No, definitely not.
Are you sure?
Crocodile Dundee was the hardest man on earth. And...
Yeah, but did he not get a cold at some point?
No, I don't think so.
Are you sure?
No, I don't think so. I think... do you remember that great scene in Crocodile Dundee when they're walking home through, I think, New York or Washington?
Oh, in New York.
In New York, and a guy comes up with a knife, it's like he's got a 5-inch blade or something,
Well, he's in a bar, isn't he? Somewhere up in the Bronx or something, isn't that?
No. He's strolling home in Midtown with Linda Kowalski.
No, he's not. He's in a bar, and he comes out of a bar, and there's two hookers who start talking to him. And then the guy comes up with a knife to try and rob him.
No, because she's with him, and the guy pulls the knife, and he's very nervous. He's a mugger, and he says, "Give me your money." And he says, "Why would I want to do that?"
Yeah.
And Linda Kowalski says, "Oh, Mick, he's got a knife." And he says, "Knife? That's not a knife." And he reaches behind to the back of his belt and pulls out this sort of hunting knife. It's about 12 inches long. Yeah. And the mugger, throws his knife in the air and flees. Yeah, great scene.
Yeah, I'm glad you remember that one.
But Mick Dundee never had... No, he never had a head cold or anything like that.
Well, O'Hara says it reminds you of the Crocodile Dundee scene. This certainly doesn't remind you of him of the scene with the knife, I'm sure. Yeah. Rob says this, looking at Porky almost croaking it, would it be a good idea for TalkSport to have a priest on standby?
Well, I'll tell you what I'm really surprised about over the years, and considering my contribution to the company, which has been so extensive, why isn't there a heart defibrillator in this studio?
There is one downstairs, actually, funnily enough.
Well, that's not much good if I suddenly keel over here, is it?
No, there won't be time for you to go and get it.
Why isn't it hit? Certainly won't be time for me to go and get it.
Well, if you're having a heart attack, you don't get your own defibrillator,
No,
do
you don't, no.
You don't go clear and hit yourself with it, do you?
No, of course you don't. That's what I'm saying. So why isn't there one here? I mean, don't you think that you should have some sort of compassionate interest in...
I should just carry around a heart defibrillator
Why not?
Maybe we'll take it on tour with us.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
We'll take it to Dingwalls.
Why not?
I mean, they may have their own one. Because if you die, I'm not going to resuscitate you.
I'm looking forward to Dingwall. I'm going to ignore that ridiculous comment.
Well, no, because you may not wish to be resuscitated.
If I die,
you may become a vegetable.
Hang on. If I die, you'd have a great difficulty in sustaining yourself in the world without me.
Well, I'd just go and work with that guy, Mike Osborne.
I'll
just give him a call. Go, hey, Mike, what's going on? We can be the two Mikes.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, you did.
Yeah, I rang him once because I wanted to speak to him, but the police had taken his phone because they were investigating something. So that was a bit difficult.
Yes, pretty tricky. Derek in Pencoed is still listening. He says, Mike, Porky claims that only a third of his heart works, with using words like dirty, smelly dross to describe people who are not as well off as he is.
I never said that.
I'd say he's heartless. You actually use the word filthy to describe some people.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, filthy beggars. What have you got in that cup?
What it is...
Fortunately, our executive producer, David, has brought us each a cup of tea. You already appear to have a cup of something else.
But this is to caress my vocal cords, and it is honey, basil.
Basil?
Yeah, lemon.
Who told you to put basil in it?
Well, it's good. Lemon and a sachet of blackcurrant Beecham's powder.
I don't think you should put all that in one cup.
I think it's okay.
It's no wonder you're in such a bad way. I mean,
anyway, listen, I need to tell you about something, okay?
Yeah, go
on. Did you realise that within 20 years there will be no coffee in the world?
Well, if it's as true as all of the other, terrible warnings...
Do you know where else is going?
You told us there was going to be no Ferrero Rocher in the world. You told us there was going to be no vanilla in the world.
But they were short-term.
You were going to say there was no... olive oil was going to run out.
No.
We were going to run out of chocolate at some point. Now we're going to run out of coffee.
They were short-term. Yeah. I'm telling you now what the long-term...
when you say long-term, what do you mean long-term?
20 years. Right, you know what's going to go?
20 years, I don't think I'll be too worried. I think I'll be here.
Right, kidney beans.
Kidney beans?
Yeah.
You don't make coffee with those.
No, I'm telling you what's going as well as coffee. Kidney beans, bananas, and maize. And
Maize.
what does maize produce?
Well, maize
Sweet corn.
is a kind of corn product.
Sweet corn.
Yeah.
Do you know what is going to replace all those?
No. What is it?
Yams.
Yams.
No. Do you know what a yam is?
I'm not a big fan of yams.
What is a yam?
Well, it's a sort of fruit vegetable type
Is
thing,
it?
isn't it? Yeah.
Doesn't sound very good to me.
It's Jamaican.
Cassava.
Cassava. I don't know what that is.
It's a root vegetable.
Is it?
Finger and pearl millet.
Finger and pearl millet. Is that like couscous?
Well, it's a type of grain, it says.
Yeah, it's a kind of semolina or something, isn't it?
Yeah, is that the sort of stuff that they used to eat in the Wild West, like the people go west, young man, and all
like
that?
grits, you mean?
Yeah, on the wagon train and all
grits
that.
might be similar to that. I don't know.
And then
I had some couscous tonight. Actually, I made couscous. It was nice.
I've never eaten couscous. I don't know what it is. And sorghum.
Sorghum.
Grain often used as livestock feed in the Western world. How about that?
So we're going to be eating sort of cow feed, basically.
Well, this is it. It says here, bananas, sweet corn, kidney beans, all risk being eradicated because of the impact of climate change. What a load of rubbish.
Well, you know, we'll be talking to a climate change expert. I don't know if you heard me saying that.
Yeah.
From the US Geological Survey, because parts of the Solomon Islands in the Pacific are disappearing under the water.
Yes, I'm never going to talk to an expert on that.
Well,
and this
maybe
could be linked.
maybe you can talk to him about that as well.
Up to a third of the land used to grow bananas and maize in Africa and 2/3 of land for beans is unviable and will be within a few years. And as early as 2025, these crops will need to be replaced by tougher root vegetables such as yams, millet. Coffee production is likely to be drastically affected.
Why?
Because
Do you remember when they tried to get
soil's going to be trash.
Rubbish, absolute
it's going to be trash, but
unadulterated nonsense.
Right, but this doesn't come
Do you
from.
remember when the Americans tried to get the cocaine producers down in Colombia to start doing coffee instead?
Yeah, that's right.
And they all went, well, why would we do that?
How did that work?
We don't make any money. We make a lot more money growing the coca bean, the coca plant rather, and selling it onto the cartels than we would ever making coffee.
If the cartels ever paid us instead of shooting us. But
well, no, the cartels did pay them. They still do pay them. That's why they make so much money.
Well, they run the country, don't they?
Yeah.
It says here. Now, what I like about this, the reason I've raised it, is because it hasn't come from a bunch of, lunatics in Switzerland or a group of nutty scientists.
Lunatics in Switzerland?
Yeah.
Is that where they all are?
Yeah, who got together in Indonesia. Do you know where this report has come from?
I've no idea.
It's come from the most authoritative institution on plant life in the world. Where do you think that is?
I would say that is in southwest England.
Well, actually, it's closer to home. It's the Royal Botanic Gardens in Kew.
There you go. Well,
Right.
Southwest London.
Yeah, southwest London, not southwest England. Yeah,
I thought it might have been from that place down in Cornwall. You know, the dome that they've got.
Yeah. What's that? That's not a dome. That's a big tent.
The Eden Project.
Eden Project. Yeah.
Well,
Nobody talks about that anymore, do they?
I haven't heard anyone talking about it for a while.
Do you know if you'd have bought a house in St Ives 10 years ago, you could have retired by now?
What?
St Ives.
What do you mean you could have retired?
Well, I went there about 15 years ago. I thought, what a nice place. I'm going to buy a cottage here, and I always meant to, and I never did.
Right.
You can't now.
Why not?
Because they've restricted it now to local people.
Oh, is that right?
So they're now in such short supply.
That doesn't seem fair.
Well, I think it is quite fair. They're now in such short supply, holiday homes there, that if one comes on the market, I mean, they're up to £1 million now. And you could have bought them in those days for, I'm not joking, 25 grand,
That must
30
really
grand.
upset you.
It does. It upsets me greatly.
That must
it does.
keep you
Upsets
awake
me
at
greatly.
night.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of retiring, you've seen they retired the Grand National winner.
The one that won last year.
The one that won this year.
This year?
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. Why is that?
Well, it's only last month, but apparently had a couple of pelvic injuries or something. He's 9 years old. The horse, Rule the World.
And the horse that won in 2007 has died.
What's that got to do with it?
Well, it happened on the same day. So
yesterday.
Yesterday. It wasn't a good day for Grand National winners. You're absolutely right.
Well, it's not a bad day if you're a Grand National winner and you get retired.
Did we win? No, I came second and third.
I had the winning horse.
You had the winning horse, yeah.
But it was on behalf of a member of my family. So I had to hand over all the money. And in fact, even though I was the one that staked the bet, I was not able to keep any of the money.
Yes.
It's a shocking state of affairs, isn't it?
Shocking.
That's women for you.
Shocking.
Anyway, we got loads coming up. This is Talk Sport.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
You're irritable, but you're empty. Holding out your heart to people who never really care how you are. So give me coffee and tea.
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mics. Lots of tweets to read out to you. Craig says this. Sounds like Mike Parry's a long sufferer of the horrendous disease known as hypochondria, the big girl's blouse.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, well, you want to try
people
it,
are beginning to realise that you are a complete and utter hypochondriac.
No, I'm not.
And all you ever go on about is how sick you are and how ill you are. And the reason you do it is because you think it'll elicit some kind of sympathy for your ridiculously outmoded and outrageous views on life in general.
No.
And people will think that you actually must be quite a nice guy because you have to get up every day and suffer through these terrible, terrible things that are happening to you at all times.
Until you suffer like me, you won't know. So I'm not even going to respond to your nonsense, okay? What about this one here?
Here's one from Housekeeper who says the percentage of your heart that works is much bigger than the percentage of the votes you got in winners and losers.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Yes, that's very kind of you. Thank you.
Because I've actually got 50% more votes than you. That's the point.
I couldn't handle a show without MG. It would be a 3-hour rant about cyclists and backpackers. Well, I have to say, Girl Wonder, this is who it comes from. That unless somebody
She's a fine woman.
Yeah, she's really good. I'm delighted to hear that. Unless somebody like me campaigned against cyclists and backpackers, they would get away with all sorts of liberties that we can't allow. Yeah. Okay?
How about this one from Steve? He says, Porky is as fit as an East Ham butcher's dog. There's nothing wrong with him.
Yeah, well, I wish I was. No, it says here, got to be an MG landslide this week because Porky asked us to all vote for Russell Brand's unborn child.
That's true.
But I thought that was very clever.
No, but it obviously...
I thought that was very, very
but
clever.
It clearly wasn't clever because it backfired completely.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Matt says this, if Porky became a vegetable after a heart attack, maybe you could boil him. A fitting tribute.
A ridiculous statement. I'm not even going to respond to that.
That's tremendous.
I'm going to laugh at it. Right, here we go. For some unknown reason, what is this? Hang on.
Can you not just read things out?
I'm trying to. I lost my place.
Let me do another one.
Minute.
Stephen says, with the service Porky has given TalkSport, he should have a testimonial.
Yes, thank you. Yes, that's it.
Don't give him any more ideas.
Yeah, no, it's a great idea.
He should be organising one for himself.
It's a great idea. Right, what a warrior Mike Parry is, taking everything possible to entertain the millions of listeners. This is the sort of thing I like. That comes from Craig. Craig, thank you very much indeed.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I do. I walk through walls.
You don't.
I do.
You don't do anything like that.
I skip through hoops of fire.
Every time you've got anything wrong with you, all you do is moan about it.
And I do it for our millions of listeners because
Really?
I feel it's my duty.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Bungle Boy points out the bloke that owns Ryanair owns that horse, which is true.
Say again.
The guy that owns Ryanair, Michael O'Leary, is the owner of that horse that won the Grand National.
Oh, really?
Rule the world.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
He is, yeah.
Yeah, what a great shame.
Craig says, you've just read that one out, haven't you? What a warrior.
Yes.
Ian says, those lunatics in Switzerland, that's another country Porky's managed to alienate.
Well, there are a lot of people there because, of course, Switzerland's a neutral country.
When you say neutral, what do you mean?
Well, they don't believe in fighting anybody.
How does that make them neutral, then?
Well, because they don't engage in wars. So if there's a war going on in Europe...
you don't know they're always going to be neutral, do you?
Well,
they're not always neutral.
Well, who would want to attack Switzerland anyway?
I mean, some might say that storing Nazi gold in the vaults of the Swiss banks was hardly an act of neutrality.
Well,
some might also say...
I think that wasn't known about till after the war, to be honest.
Oh, yeah, but it doesn't make them neutral, does it?
Well, they didn't actually send any soldiers anywhere. That's the point I'm making.
They store a load of Nazi gold. They support dictators around the world and have done in the past.
Yeah, but that's their banking system.
Yeah, but that's not neutrality.
Well, I think it probably is, actually, because... Oh, excuse me, sorry.
God's sake.
Because
put up with this all week, haven't we?
I mean, but nobody would bother invading Switzerland. Why would you?
Well, it's full of riches, that's why. I mean, that's one of the reasons...
to get your hands on the riches.
One of the reasons why you'd think that they might be something less than neutral is that if they haven't got much of an army, which they haven't, yet they have got some of the world's greatest riches in the vaults of their banks. They've got... I remember my sister telling me she went to the headquarters of this Swiss bank she was working for.
Oh, yes.
And they had...
In Switzerland?
In Switzerland, in Zurich. And they had, original Van Goghs hanging, in the lobby of the building. Yeah. They had Monets, Picassos. I mean, billions and billions of pounds.
Do they have any L.S. Lowrys?
She didn't see any, but they may have.
I think Gordon Taylor's got one of those in his
Gordon
headquarters.
Taylor?
Yeah, of the
PFA.
PFA, Manchester.
Does he own it or do they own it?
Well, they own it, obviously, but I think it's one of the most valuable ones. But anyway, there we are. Now, I'll tell you what I was going to talk to you about.
Hang on, you know what we have to do before we do anything else? Is that we have to decide on listography.
Well, that's a good idea.
Because we decided last night that we would continue the New Day's listography scenario.
Yes.
And we've had loads and loads of stuff actually come in. A couple of people during the day said... will there be an opportunity for people who listen to the podcast to suggest subjects? And yes, there will. But what we're going to do for the first few weeks of it, or the first few days of it, is just to ask you to send in, as we're on now live, ideas for 3 things that we should name.
Yes.
Listography for the Portmeister and myself. So so tweet it at the 2 mics, and we'll take our pick.
Have we got them for tonight?
Well, we haven't, no, because I'll ask people to send them in, and then we can choose and we can make our choice. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, yeah. Now, I told you about the fact that there won't be any coffee in 20 years' time.
Well, you said that. You started saying it, but then you didn't really explain why.
I did. I told you all that. I told you about the fact
you said the soil is going to change.
Soil's not going to be good enough to grow coffee beans. All right. Now, in addition to that, within another 20 years' time, right, a fifth of the world's plant species will have been wiped out.
Yeah.
Okay? And do you know what's going to go?
What? Apart from coffee.
The coffee's on its way out. The Earth can't sustain coffee. There's not enough nutrients in the Earth's soil
Where do you
anymore.
get this rubbish from?
Because I read my scientific journals.
Scientific?
Yeah.
Picked one up in Cardiff, did you?
Now, let me tell you this. Do you know what's going to disappear?
What?
The Amazon lily.
Right.
The Hazavola tree.
The Hazavola tree?
Hazavola.
Well, we'll miss that.
That's unique to Madagascar, by the way. What's your problem?
Have you ever seen one? A Hazavola tree.
Well, I've never been to Madagascar.
No.
But bet there's one at...
Well, imagine your disappointment if you went all the way to Madagascar and went, where's the Hazavola tree orchard? And they went, no, there's none left.
I bet there's one in Kew Gardens, in Kew.
Well, then you could go there
in the Botanic Gardens, Royal Botanic Gardens.
You get there on a district line. It's a lot easier than Madagascar.
The Bermuda bean will disappear. What's your problem?
The Bermuda bean?
Yeah, the Bermuda bean.
What's the name of that tree again?
The tree is the Hazavola tree.
Hazavola.
It's unique to Madagascar.
Well, you said it was in Kew Gardens.
No, I said they've probably gone over there, got a sprig of it, and then taken it back to Kew Gardens and grown it.
Well, then it's no longer unique to Madagascar, is it?
It is in terms of its wild growth. It's like, you've got to remember that Royal Botanical Gardens in Kew is like a plant zoo.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? They go around the world nicking plants from all over the place and bringing them back and planting them there. But they don't belong there. They've got no mates there, if you see what I mean.
Like a tree zoo is what you're talking about.
Yeah, it is, yeah. So, and now, the Bermuda bean, by the way...
Where's that from?
It's from Bermuda.
Really?
Yeah. But it's a relative of the common bean. It's a relative of the common bean.
Where's the common bean from? Common?
The common bean is native to the Caribbean... and it grows in rocky woodlands and can be seen in forest clearings.
Really?
Yeah. What's your problem?
Forest clearings where?
Well...
How about the New Forest?
Well, no, not the New Forest. There's no trees. Now, also...
They've got a lot of beans, though.
Also, I'll tell you what else is going.
Can you get the common bean on Clapham Common?
No, you idiot. I've just told you where it comes from.
You didn't.
I
you
did.
said it came from forest clearings.
Yeah, in the Caribbean.
In the Caribbean?
But the Bermuda bean only comes from Bermuda.
Which is not in the Caribbean.
I must have seen a few Bermudan beans in my time. I've been to Bermuda, yeah. Now,
what did you do in Bermuda?
I'll tell you what it was. It was a tall ship, one with sails.
A tall ship with sails?
Yes.
Well, the Cutty Sark, that kind of thing.
No, that's that kind of thing. And it was the round-the-world race. And
you weren't on that, were you?
No, but the boat went down and took all the crew with it, 28 members of it, offside. Right. I remember the headline that Roger, what's-his-name, wrote, the night editor, The Vortex of Terror. Because I tell you what...
Vortex of Terror?
Yeah, that was his headline.
That's a terrible headline.
I know. But I tell you what, the ship was just going along, right, under sail, and then the most amazing thing happened. The wind got up so rapidly and so fiercely from, like, nothing, like doldrums, 10 or 15
I've been in that situation.
To 90 knots.
I know what that's like, yeah.
And do you know what it did? The masts and the sails were so huge and tall, it tipped the ship forward into the air and drove it down into Davy Jones's locker. And it was an amazing story. Hey?
Into what?
Davy Jones's locker.
I didn't know that was near Bermuda.
It's everywhere. That's the name for the bottom of the sea.
Is it?
Two sailors.
Right.
Now, the last...
you're a pirate now.
Well, I know all about pirates. I've studied them. Now...
we should have a quiz on pirates.
Yeah, OK, if you want, yeah.
You want to do that this week?
Yes, that's good.
Pirates.
Yeah, pirates, yeah. Now, the other plant that's going to disappear is the Solanum albanazololi. It's a relative of the potato. What's your problem? Why can't you just take these things seriously?
What's the name of it again?
It's the Solanum albanazololi. And it's...
just as well they don't sell that in chip shops, really, isn't it?
Well, I'll tell you why they don't. It's a relative of the potato, but it only grows in a 1 square mile area of Ecuador at the top of the Andes. What's your problem?
So why would we care?
Well,
if this disappears.
Well, you
You're
have
the
to
guy
care.
that said you didn't care if the white rhino disappeared.
Well, yeah, but I mean, nobody's
So
ever
now
sees
you're
a
worried
white
about
rhino.
a potato-like vegetable that grows in a very small part of Ecuador.
Yeah, but you've got to understand.
Which is unpronounceable.
Yes, I know, but you've got to understand that's the thin end of the wedge. Once the white rhino's
Thin end
gone,
of the potato wedge.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, that's a very cheap joke, but I can see
What's
where
the
you're coming from.
pronunciation of that again?
The Solanum alba-nozzolilili. Well, what is your problem? Honestly, is grammar something you struggle with?
No, it's something you struggle with.
No, it's not.
How about this? Matt says, right, that's it. I'm ending my life now. No point living without the Madagascar tree.
Well, I'm only trying to educate people into what's going on.
I know. We've got some great suggestions, by the way, and I'm going to narrow them down because there's a couple here that I quite like.
Yeah.
You could do for listography from Rob 3 top journals. You could have from Jim 3 females best placed to be the first Mrs. Parry.
Yeah.
And of course, you can have your 3 favourite seaside locations, which I think is rather good.
Okay.
Should we do that?
Well, I think we should be told what it is. I don't think we should be able to choose our own because it makes it too... We're in the comfort zone.
Why?
Well, I think our producer should select it and tell us.
Well, you think he should... Well, he doesn't have all the tweets coming in.
Well, he can have access to them because if we choose one for ourselves,
Why?
you think you want to do this one, you're in your comfort zone, and we should be out of our comfort zone.
Well, I mean, you can choose a different one then if you want.
No, seaside locations is fine
What's
for
wrong
me.
with seaside locations? I mean, it's not like we're under, a threat of torture or anything.
Okay, all right.
It's just a radio show.
Okay.
Calm down.
No, that's no
Talk
problem.
sport.
Talk Sport on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. The enduring home of football.
It's modern radio, only better.
Talk Sport.
Aruba, Jamaica, ooh, I wanna take you. Bermuda, Bahama, come on, pretty mama. Key Largo, Montego, baby, why don't we go? Jamaica, off the Florida Keys. There's a place called...
This is Talk Sport. We are the 2 mics. We've just been talking about some disappearing plant life
Indeed.
that Porky's been helping everybody with. Some of it's very rare indeed. In Madagascar, in parts of Ecuador, in Bermuda, all sorts of things going on.
Yeah.
Roy says this, a pity Porky didn't disappear with his idiotic journals.
Oh,
when he was
really?
in the Bermuda Triangle.
Oh, really?
Painful listening to him.
That's very nice, isn't it? Thank you very
Steve
much
in
indeed.
Manchester says,
Yeah.
MG, Porky's rattling on about things disappearing.
Yeah.
I wish he would.
Oh,
The
yes.
plank.
Oh,
But,
thank you very much.
Anyway, we're going to talk about things that are disappearing of a much more substantial nature
Indeed.
now, because it turns out that 5 of the Solomon Islands have submerged underwater. 6 more have
news,
experienced
isn't
a dramatic reduction in shoreline
Yeah.
due to climate change, supposedly. Now, let's talk to Virginia Burkett, who is the Associate Director for Climate and Land Use Change at the US Geological Survey.
Good idea.
Because she may be able to help us out as to why this is happening. Virginia, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning to you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Now, I mean, we hear an awful lot about climate change, about rising sea levels, about sort of warming waters and, icebergs breaking up and melting and all that kind of thing. This is, I suppose, this is a very kind of easy thing to measure in terms of these Solomon Islands disappearing.
Well, sea level rise is a global phenomenon. As you mentioned, it's attributed to climate change, both the expansion of seawater as it's heated,
Right.
as it takes up the heat from the atmosphere, and as the ice sheets and glaciers are declining, and the water that's stored there is adding to the volume of sea level. So those are the 2 drivers that are causing sea level to rise globally. And some of the most vulnerable places in the world are the small islands that have low elevation and deltas.
Yeah, because we saw this in the tsunami, didn't we, of the beginning of the century, when lots of places like the Seychelles, lots of parts of those islands were becoming submerged by just by that particular incident, and many of them have never recovered.
Yes, sir. Some of the most vulnerable islands, of course, are atolls, like in the Solomon Islands, for example. These are considered hot spots of vulnerability,
right.
Due to they're low lying. They're already experiencing widespread inundation and erosion, and the ones that are reef communities in general, coral reef communities that protect some of these islands are also vulnerable due to the warming of the ocean, which causes stress on corals, as well as the increased acidification of the ocean that is due to the ocean taking up the CO2 that's higher in the atmosphere now at the ocean surface.
Virginia, for every island that disappears, and I accept that some do, don't islands emerge in other parts of the world? And, for instance, coastal erosion, and we know a lot about that in this country, the United Kingdom, we're an island state. We do lose bits of cliff, we do lose, parts of the shoreline, but we also gain other parts of the shoreline where the silt that's fallen away from one cliff into the sea is carried by tides around an estuary and planted somewhere else. I mean, it's a movable feast, isn't it? All this about losing islands and them appearing somewhere else.
No, sir, I disagree with that. I think that the islands are not emerging at the same rate that they are disappearing. Coasts are retreating globally, and again, low-lying coastal areas. Now, you may have some, processes that, particularly along coasts that are receiving sediment, where sediment is transported via longshore currents and building land elsewhere. But the net trend globally is towards the loss of these low-lying islands, particularly these atoll islands in the Central Pacific, and low-lying areas that normally could keep pace with sea level rise, like deltas. But now that sea level rise has accelerated, we're roughly doubled in the.
But Virginia, I'm sorry, I don't get this. I hear what you're saying. Then I read reports from the Royal Geographical Society saying there hasn't been any rise in sea levels for the past 40 years. And for instance, as we live on an island here in the United Kingdom, I can assure you, when I walk on a beach, I live down on the south coast. There's a place called the Solent. I haven't seen in the last 10 years that the water's lapping up higher against the sea wall now than it did then. I just don't get rising sea. I don't know where it's happening. It's certainly not happening in the United Kingdom, and we're an island nation.
Well, if you look, what we do as scientists is we look at data collected around the world at tide gauges that have been maintained in Key West, Florida, Galveston Island. I'm real familiar with the ones in the United States, but there are some in the UK and Japan, all over the world. We have these long-term tide gauge records. That's one of the instrumental records that shows that sea level rise has accelerated. And since 1993, we have a set of satellites that they produce what we call altimeter records. And actually, they measure around the world very precisely the rate of change of the absolute elevation of the ocean surface. And both of these more recent satellite records, as well as the tide gauge records, show that sea level rise has accelerated. Last century, it was about 1.7 millimeters per year, but since 1993.
Well, I don't know where this is happening. I mean,
she's explaining that it's happening in the places where it's being measured.
But it's not happening in New York Harbour.
Well, you may not. Is it happening in New York Harbour, Virginia? Mike's asking.
Yes, it's happening all over the world, but the rates are there. It's not monotonic, where every place has the identical rate. In some places, it's even higher, like off the Central Atlantic coast in North America. We've observed somewhat higher rates of sea level rise, and in the Solomon Islands, they also, in this report that you referred to.
But nobody cares about the Solomon Islands,
no, that's not
Virginia.
True. No, that's not true.
No.
We all care about every single part of the earth.
Hang on.
Please forgive him, Virginia. 1 second. No, hang on. Let me just speak for a moment, because I was going to ask you another question. In terms of, say, somewhere like the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, which we hear is being sort of depleted and eroded, and is parts of it disappearing.
Myth.
Well, it's not a myth at all.
It's a myth that it's acidic water surrounds the Great Barrier Reef. Rubbish.
I'm sorry, Virginia. I think he's having a bad night. He's not feeling very well.
A good night.
Allow me to apologise on his behalf. The point is that, if, for example, the Great Barrier Reef was to get smaller, wouldn't that have a good effect on the rising of the sea? Because it would mean that the sea would actually reduce in volume, if you like, because there's less in it.
Well, if the Great Barrier Reef was of a size where it could have an impact. I see what you're saying. There would be a net. But it's not large enough probably to make even a fraction of a percent
Right.
have in an effect if it were to disappear. I don't know of anybody that's ever looked at it quite like that, but it's so tiny compared to the volume of the ocean that is increased due to thermal expansion and the decline of land ice.
Yeah, but you see, Virginia, what I'm saying is nobody cares if the Solomon Islands disappears because nobody really lives there. Well, they can live somewhere else because there's only a few of them.
There's 500,000 people living in the Solomon Islands.
Can you tell me, Virginia, if the theories about, the sea levels getting higher are absolutely correct and accurate, how long will it be before San Francisco or New York disappear underwater and are no longer habitable? I reckon it would take about 8,000 years by looking at the data that you're giving us, and therefore it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
Well, it depends on where you live and your elevation. In the Maldives Islands, for example.
Yeah, well, nobody cares about them either because they're just holiday paradises.
Yeah, but of course people care about
them.
No,
they don't.
Everybody is not like you.
Yeah, they are.
Where the whole country resides is 2 meters or less in elevation. In Tuvalu, nothing on those islands is higher than 5 meters in elevation. So it does matter to people that live in those environments.
But I've been to the Seychelles.
Hang on, it should also matter to all of us.
Seychelles is in the Indian Ocean.
We're all part of the human race.
And I can tell you, nobody's running around the Seychelles worrying about the island being swamped tomorrow. There's loads of islands in the Seychelles. And if they were swamped tomorrow, who cares? There's only people lying on beaches. They ain't going lying on beach somewhere else.
You're being very objectionable here.
No,
I'm sorry,
not.
Virginia.
I'm not.
Virginia, was it not the Prime Minister of the Seychelles who went and held a cabinet meeting underwater to highlight the difficulties of the elevation and how they were very worried about this happening?
Yes, the island countries in general have banded together to try to help people understand their vulnerability. If your whole national land base was vulnerable to submersion or complete loss, people do band together, and they've been very vocal. There are about 300 million people, and that's a lot of people that live on deltas globally, these large mega deltas, and most of the people that are would be affected by a 1 to 2 meter rise in sea level are located on these deltas, and most of them are in Asia, where people do not have the opportunity, the resources to be able to just abandon their homes.
Yeah, but which delta? Sorry, Virginia. Which delta in Asia recently suffered or enjoyed a 1 or 2 meter rise in the water levels that serve it? I don't remember anywhere suddenly becoming 6 feet underwater. Any delta anywhere in the world?
Well, many of them are sinking. The Mississippi Delta, for example, where I was a coastal zone management program manager for our state of Louisiana for earlier in my career, and Louisiana has lost just very rapidly many acres of square miles of the coastline. Overnight during Hurricane Katrina, 218 square miles of Louisiana's coastal delta.
That was a hurricane. That was a hurricane.
Yeah, but
of course, things
happened.
Changed during the hurricane.
I think you've been very rude to Virginia.
No,
Virginia,
I'm not being rude.
I'm afraid we're out of time. I must apologise again for my.
No, Virginia, thank you for joining us.
My Neanderthal co-host here, who doesn't.
Please read these reports and make make an informed assessment of the literature.
Exactly.
That's what I was making.
Read your journals.
You'll find it very interesting that there is a lot of evidence globally of both the rate of rise and the impacts on low-lying coast globally.
Well, okay, if you say so, Virginia, all I can say is, in my travels all around the world, and I've travelled around the globe 3 times.
Decades.
Excuse me, can I just tell you, I've never met anybody.
And you should be very worried about the rising levels of seawater because you're so short.
You'll
be drowning before I am.
I've never met anybody who said, "Oh, Mr. Parry, good to see you," because I used to live in this hovel-like hut near the beach, and guess what? It's now 4 feet underwater. I've never met anybody whose house has disappeared underwater.
If you went to the Mississippi...
I've never met anybody whose island disappeared, like in the Solomon Islands. I've been to the Seychelles.
That's because you don't meet anyone.
Which is in the Indian Ocean, which is supposed to be vulnerable. Nobody, when I went to the Seychelles...
When were you there?
About
what year?
15 years ago.
Yeah, so lots have changed since then.
No, rubbish. So the stories were even more scary then than they are now. Oh,
they heard Mike Parry was coming.
No, the Seychelles Islands will disappear under, 6 feet of water. No, they're still there. Believe me, nowhere in the world has ever disappeared underwater except Atlantis. And that was all a myth.
Yeah.
And we're still looking for it.
The Mississippi Delta.
King Neptune.
The Mississippi Delta.
Yeah.
Shining like a national guitar.
What?
What's that from?
Oh, it sounds like it's from a song. But the Mississippi Delta was affected by Hurricane Katrina. Hey?
I want you to tell me what song.
What song?
The Mississippi Delta is shining like a national guitar.
That's from, I know, the girl band. Mississippi.
No, you're wrong. We'll play it next. This is TalkSport.
Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar.
There you go.
That's Paul Simon.
It is.
Definitely.
I am following the
Keep listening, you'll find out the name of the song.
Hey?
You'll find out the name of the song in a minute.
It's called Mississippi Delta.
No, it's not. It's called this.
I'm going to Graceland, to Memphis, Tennessee.
Graceland.
Yeah.
Well, Graceland was written with the influence of African sounding music, not the Deep South.
No, I just happened to mention the line because she talked about the Mississippi Delta. It reminded me of the song.
Well, why did he put the Mississippi Delta into Graceland? Because he went off to...
Well, where do you think Graceland is?
Well, Graceland is Elvis Presley's home.
Yeah, where?
In Tupelo, Memphis.
It's in Nashville, isn't it?
Memphis,
Tennessee.
Sorry,
Memphis,
Tennessee. Yeah, that's what I said.
Tennessee. Well, where do you think the Mississippi goes?
Well, I know where the Mississippi goes.
Where do you think the Mississippi Delta is?
It's at the end of the Mississippi, you idiot, in New Orleans.
Yeah. And so do you think the Mississippi goes anywhere near Graceland?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is he wrote Graceland.
He's writing a song about the South.
He wrote Graceland after he went to South Africa.
No, you're thinking of some of the other songs on the album, like Call Me Al and Diamonds on the Soles of My Shoes and all that. But Graceland was not about Africa. God, you are a plank when it comes to music.
What's that thing? You can call me... I can be your pal.
Never mind trying to sing the song. Now, I've got some things to read out to you.
Me
now, I want you to prepare, right?
Yeah.
To prepare your 3 favourite seaside locations. We're not going to do them just yet. We're going to do them very shortly.
Well, come on, let's do them. Let's get on with it.
We're going to do them shortly. Just calm down.
All right.
Urban Spaceman says, if Porky's concerned about a shortage of sorghum, I'm happy to help out. But I'll give him sore teeth, sore nose and a sore eye too.
Is that right?
Yes. How about this one from Becky?
Violence,
the Porky rooftop garden needs to become a home for rare and endangered plants and trees with unpronounceable names.
Well, there's a few of those already there, don't worry.
And Dan says, talk absolute tripe. So happy to hear Mike Parry talk absolute tripe again after missing out for 2 weeks.
Oh, really? Yeah, I don't know what tripe you're talking about.
Do you remember O'Hara, who was talking about the Crocodile Dundee scene? He says it's while he's at a party, and he shows somebody how to clear their nasal passages.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No. What do you think the best scene is in that Crocodile Dundee film?
Well, I quite like the knife scene. That's quite good.
Right,
the one with the 2 hookers is quite funny as well.
Yeah.
When he comes out of the bar where he's met the transvestite. When they go, we like looking so much, we might have to give you one for free. And he goes, yeah? One what?
Yeah.
And he doesn't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Which is quite funny.
Yeah. Do you know my funniest scene is, they go to this, meets her dad for the first time.
Yeah.
Then meets her boyfriend, who is the executive vice president of her dad's company, right?
Yeah.
Go to the very poshest restaurant. And then, because he's getting fed up with the guy, He remember they're in the room at the table together, and he points out something and says, "What's that over there?" And as they all look over, he punches the boyfriend on the point of the jaw, just on the point of the jaw, and it was such a quick flick of his wrist, where the boyfriend then doesn't even realise he's been punched. The girlfriend, Linda Kowalski, didn't see it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the boyfriend appears to be completely drunk
woozy.
and woozy and incapable, because he knew that if you hit somebody right on the point of the chin, it's where the 2 nerves coming down from the top of your head meet at that point, and that's a perfect place to hit them to disorient them.
No, exactly right. Now, a lot of people were saying you were very rude to that woman who was just on.
No, I wasn't.
Which was
No,
not
she was
well
talking
received.
bunkum, I'm afraid. You know.
Well, she wasn't talking bunkum,
I'm not going to
actually.
sit here and listen to somebody, rattle off a load of ridiculous scientific data. I asked her the actual practical questions. Which part of the world have disappeared over the last 50 years because of rising sea levels?
I told you the Solomon Islands
No!
are disappearing.
Oh,
they're
right.
disappearing.
Show me a picture of one.
Well, I will do if you calm yourself
Rubbish.
down.
Utter nonsense.
I don't know why you're
Drivel.
so obsessed with this nonsense, right? That you think everybody's somehow conspiring against you personally to tell you lies.
They are.
Which is ridiculous.
It's all a huge, massive green conspiracy
Ian
to
says-
make sure that governments divert funds
Not
to
true.
all these blinking research
I mean,
projects
that is such an outmoded
in
view.
which people employ themselves
It is
on
such
huge
an
amounts of
outmoded
money.
view. No, the difference between you and I, as far as climate change is concerned,
Yeah.
and as far as, and there is some truth to the taxes that some governments put on because they like the sound of putting them on.
Yeah.
However, there is no doubt that the sea waters are rising. The only difference between you and I is that you might have a different view as to why it's happening. But you can't deny that it's happening because then you start to
totally
sound
deny it's
like
happening.
a complete and utter fool.
OK, why is there more ice in the Antarctic today than there was 200 years ago?
There isn't that much more ice.
Yes, there is.
No, there isn't.
There is.
Well, so why do you believe some of the reports but not the other ones then?
I believe those that
So
have...
why do you believe the one that says there's more ice, but not the one that says there's less ice in the Arctic?
Because I've seen the pictures of the more ice in the Antarctic.
Oh, right. Well, haven't you seen the pictures of the ice melting in the Arctic?
Yes, but it's seasonal. I've then seen it
Oh, right.
3 months later, back where it was when it gets to winter.
So why is the stuff in the Antarctic not seasonal?
The Antarctic doesn't have seasons.
The Antarctic doesn't have
seasons. No.
I see.
No.
Okay. Here's one from Ian who says, would Porky have the same attitude if his Gosport penthouse shed was under threat?
But it's not. That's why it's a penthouse.
Yeah.
I've always bought...
It's not a penthouse, is it, though?
I've always bought
But it's
homes...
not a penthouse.
Excuse me. I've always bought homes off
Is
the
it a
ground.
penthouse or not?
I've always bought homes off the ground for two reasons. Firstly, I will never be subject to flooding. And secondly, I will never, ever have to worry about having a rat in the pipework. So that's why, OK?
A rat in the pipe?
Well, people, you went on the other day, you're never more than 6 feet away from a rat and all
You're
that.
not.
And
There are plenty of rats in Gosport, trust me.
That's a nightmare. Well, it's not where I live, believe me.
Matt says this, listen to Porky talk to Virginia. I think the quiz should be on being an ignoramus because he'll absolutely get 10 out of 10.
No, listen, let's just get this right. When these so-called experts come on and give you all this drivel from statistics, you're supposed to sit here like some empty-headed numpty and say, oh, that's interesting, or you're supposed to ask them the practical question, which parts of the world have disappeared underwater in my lifetime? The answer is none.
Well,
nowhere.
I don't think that's true
Nillo.
either. I don't think that's true either.
9.
Sir Sean says, I've never heard such ill-informed, obtuse rantings from Porky. I thought he'd ask why there is no half monkey and half men in the world.
Oh, what a ridiculous
What a completely
statement.
ridiculous situation. Now, coming up, I'm going to ask you for your 3 favourite seaside locations. This is TalkSport.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on TalkSport and Talk Radio.
Possibly can.
Good thinking.
We're going to get people to nominate things that we should list our 3 favourite things
Yes,
on.
good.
Now, Becky's been chosen for this one, and it's 3 favourite seaside locations. So off you go with 1, 2 and 3.
Sorry, is that just in this country or anywhere
It
in
can
the
be
world?
anywhere in the world, I think.
You sure?
I mean, it's very hard to pick 3. I'm struggling to pick 3.
Oh, no, I'm not. No. Right, OK,
You have to
my
go
3
fast.
favourites are... And do you want me to go 3, 2, 1?
If you like.
Right, I'll go 3, 2, 1. Right, my 3 favourites are San Francisco Bay,
Okay.
Sydney Harbour,
Okay.
and Bamborough Beach in Northumberland.
Okay. Well, those are all pretty lovely places.
Right.
I mean, I've been struggling to come up with 3.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Mustique, the island in the Caribbean, which I
Right.
think is fantastic. I'd like to say I can't choose between the Majorcan sort of island generally and the Amalfi Coast, but I
Right.
think I might just go with the Amalfi Coast
Okay.
in Italy,
Yes.
which is gorgeous. And then I'm going to choose one in this country as well, which is Durdle Door and the whole Jurassic coastline down in Devon.
know it well.
Which is absolutely beautiful.
I know it well.
You know, from from Poole
My
along,
sister's family go there a lot.
Yeah, it's a fantastic part of the world. But I mean, I love the sea,
Yes.
and
Et moi.
I'm struggling to think of just 3 that I would say. But those are my 3, so that's what. So what we'll ask you to do is send in some more nominations. I'll try and remember. I'd get them to be saved during the course of the day.
Good
We got
idea.
a lot yesterday.
I also like Pwllheli Beach in North Wales. Yeah, Pwllheli. And,
I've just been given a great idea by the producer. Hashtag it listography, and then we can find them.
Yes, good idea.
And then that way we can use some of the suggestions that we get during the day. Now, I've also had a good a tweet from Richard who says the Mississippi Delta is actually defined as a location much further north than New Orleans, which actually includes the southern tip of Tennessee and Memphis.
Indeed.
So that's why the Mississippi Delta was in the song.
Quite right.
Jeff says, Porky, man of the people, unless you're a Solomon Islander.
Yeah.
Because I guess he doesn't care too much about them. This is Talk Sport. We are the two Mikes. Martin in Suffolk says this on the text, 81089. He says, Mike Parry, get your facts right. The new covenant on property in Cornwall is for new build properties only. It has been contested by the government as illegal. How do you get things so wrong, and how many people have you fooled throughout your life? I would call you a plank, but at least a plank is useful.
Well, that's very nice, isn't it? I agree totally with the facts as outlined by a correspondent there, and that is exactly how I understood it.
Yes, okay.
And had you listened to the way I advised our millions of listeners...
Well, you said you couldn't buy a house down there anymore unless you were living there. But
that's right, that's exactly what I'm saying.
But that's only for new builds,
yeah,
is what
exactly.
you're saying.
That's what I'm saying.
You can buy a house there.
Well,
you can buy an old house.
What I said was, I wasn't even talking about ownership. I was saying because of the new rules that have been introduced, the way the market now has soared and the value of the property down there...
You can't buy it because you can't afford it.
Exactly.
Right.
Is massive.
Oh, okay.
But anyway,
here's one from Georgie who says, since 2008, an island has been emerging off the coast of Fleetwood. It's about 600 metres in length and has height of about 10 feet above sea level. Maybe it's balancing out those vanishing Solomon Islands on the opposite side of the world.
Thank you very much indeed.
Buy your own island, maybe.
Thank you very much indeed. That's exactly what the point...
It's not quite the same, is it, though? An island off the coast of Fleetwood and something beautiful in the South Pacific.
Well, I tell you what, I would rather say that's a more useful island than a Solomon Island. Nobody lives on the Solomon Islands.
That's not true. 500,000 people live in the Solomon Islands.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, they don't really contribute to the world economy in the way that people in Fleetwood do.
Well, how do you know that?
Because Fleetwood's got industries like fishing and all that, and a new island off Fleetwood is very useful.
You don't think they do any fishing in the Solomon Islands?
They do a bit, but they only do it with a line and rod. They don't have boats and all that kind of stuff.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, of course I'm sure about it. I know these things.
Sue in Tunbridge says, Mike Graham, do you realise that people that talk loudly or shout and are over 60 are usually going deaf? So a bit of sympathy for your old mate wouldn't be amiss. Besides, it would be something else for him to gripe about. Maybe a hearing aid is needed to give us all a comfortable listen every night.
I can tell you I'm certainly not. You know, one thing we haven't spoken about all week, and we are remiss for doing this because we have an eye on the world as a whole, the terrible fire in Canada.
I know.
I mean, it beggars belief. A whole town has literally been burnt to the ground.
Although they're saying, actually, or the report that I saw yesterday was suggesting that more of the town may have survived than they believed originally.
Yeah, but you've seen the pictures. There's vast acres of ground.
Nobody cares about them, do they?
Well, you see, should I say something to you? Nothing's ever happened in Canada. And that's why people actually don't take any notice of any news that happens in Canada. The dictum when I was, a new Suprema in Fleet Street all the time was, don't bother sending anybody to Canada. Nothing's ever happened there, and nothing ever will.
Which is probably a slight over-exaggeration.
Well, what has ever happened in Canada?
Well, loads of things have happened in Canada.
Go on, name one.
Well, I mean, for example, there was a terrorist attack, I think, in Ottawa not that long ago, that was reported.
One terrorist attack. Well, there's millions of terrorist attacks going on all around the world all the time.
No, but there was rolling news on it, I seem to remember at the time. When a guy attacked the Canadian Parliament.
Yeah.
There's always things reported. For example, there was the Winter Olympic Games were held there.
Once.
Well, Winter Olympic Games are held in places once and then they move on.
Yeah, but I mean, the Winter Olympic Games is an appointed event.
Yeah,
nothing happens in Canada.
You said nothing happens there.
No, it doesn't. Nothing happens
the Winter Olympics happened there.
What's the name of the town that's just been burnt down?
I can't remember.
Exactly, neither can I. Because nobody cares what happens in Canada.
Well, when I said nobody cares, I was rather mocking your view that nobody cares about what happens in the Solomon Islands. I mean, you don't care what happens outside of your world, basically.
No, I do.
But lots of other people do.
I mean, what's the point of having a country that's the third biggest landmass in the world, but 2/3 of it is uninhabitable?
Well,
what kind of a country is that?
It's not uninhabitable. It's just a lot of people don't live there.
Well, some of the, what are they called these days? We don't call them Eskimos anymore, do we?
Eh?
We don't call Eskimos anymore.
Well, Inuits.
Inuits, right.
Yeah.
So a few Inuit guys live in igloos, right, go around, sawing holes in the ice and catching a few fish and all that kind of stuff.
You actually, I mean, somebody said this to me last week on a tweet, that you actually, your entire sort of knowledge base is informed by watching cartoons as a child.
Don't be ridiculous.
Yeah, because you think people who live in Eskimo territories sit over an ice hole with a rod.
They do.
You think people in the Solomon Islands don't have boats and they actually just fish individually.
No, they have canoes. I've seen them.
You think that nothing happens in Canada.
Don't worry about it.
That's extraordinary.
Listen, I'll tell you
I might put it down to just your kind of hallucinogenic drugs that you're taking.
No, don't be
You've
ridiculous.
gone completely mad.
I tell you what I want to talk to you about. What about the jet engine?
What about the jet engine?
Well, let me tell you, it's the 75th anniversary of the jet engine this weekend.
Yeah.
And I'm extremely worried, and I mean extremely, extremely worried, that there is not a single celebration going on in this country to commemorate the genius of Sir Frank Whittle, who invented the jet engine.
Oh, yeah? Who was the first, which was the first jet engine that was sort of on a plane then? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, do you know where it appeared?
No.
I mean, you won't believe this. This story is just too ridiculous to relate.
Yeah.
The jet engine took to the skies for the first time on May the 15th, 1941.
Yeah.
OK?
OK.
And it powered a Gloucester E2839.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yes.
It's never been sort of, celebrated or anything like that, except for one place, and that's the airfield where it happened, at a place called Metheringham, Metheringham Airfield Visitor Centre in Lincolnshire, right?
OK.
Frank Whittle was 22 when he invented the jet engine.
Right.
How about that?
I saw an amazing documentary, actually, the other week.
Yeah.
Which is on Netflix, I think, about the whole introduction of the jumbo jet.
Right, OK.
By Boeing, and how when they did it,
Yeah.
nobody believed that they could actually ever get it off the ground.
I know.
And they had this incredible kind of... when they first rolled out the plane
Yes.
to show it off to people, it couldn't get off the ground.
No.
And they didn't try and fly it.
No.
But it's an amazing documentary about these scientists and engineers who actually were
I've
able
seen
to
it.
come up with this fantastic thing.
And I've seen that documentary a few years ago.
Yeah.
Isn't it the one in which, when the pilot eventually gets up there and is flying it, says something like, I think something must be wrong, we have no turbulence.
Yeah.
There was absolutely no turbulence on a jumbo jet because of the size of it in the sky, whereas every other aircraft to that date has suffered turbulence in the face of winds. But anyway, getting back to this. So at 22, in 1941, when we were looking for some more military, sort of oomph, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because we had the Spitfire,
A bigger
obviously.
stick.
Yeah, bigger stick, yeah. He sent the plans to the Air Ministry, and a group of experts looked at them and said it's impractical. Now, because the RAF then decided not to deem those plans as secret, they were public information, and they were accessible to anybody who wanted them. Somebody photocopied them quite legally, and then sent them to a person in Germany.
Oh, yeah.
With whom we were at war.
Really?
Guess what the Germans did?
Made a jet engine.
Gave them to the Luftwaffe, developed the first operational jet fighter, the Me-262, that's the Messerschmitt, right?
Okay.
Which entered service in 1944.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so ridiculous.
Well, you think they might be a bit more secure?
Well, you thought they might have just recognised the fact that, actually, these jet engines go 3 times as fast as a Spitfire.
Yeah.
So shouldn't we, try and maybe develop our own? They didn't. They gave it to Germany, who were the enemy. Right. I mean, it beggars belief. It literally beggars belief. And of course, as a development from... the Messerschmitt plane, which wasn't that successful because, in fact, it went too fast and pilots couldn't control the velocity of the planes and they couldn't apply proper guns to them and all that kind of stuff. But they then adapted it, of course, to the flying bombs.
Yes.
The V1s and the V2s.
Yeah, exactly.
The doodlebugs.
Yes.
And they caused massive, massive turmoil, damage, grief and death across London.
It is true.
So, I mean, that was one of the untold stories of the Second World War, the sheer incompetence of the RAF, scientists who dismissed the jet engine as a joke.
Yeah, I know.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely shocking.
Yeah.
I'm just looking up Solomon Islands and its economy, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Tourism is massive there.
Diving
is particularly a very big industry for them. And also their fisheries also offer prospects for export and domestic economic expansion. So I think apparently Solomon Teu Limited operated the only fish cannery in the country.
Well, there you go.
So
it's got one fish cannery. Wow.
They used to export,
major world economic power.
Well, they used to export an awful lot of tuna fish as well.
Yeah, all right. So explored a bit of tuna fish. Think anybody would care if it disappeared under the Indian Ocean?
Well, I'm trying to help you out here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to give you the opportunity. I'm trying to give you the opportunity to row back on some of your ludicrous points.
I'm not rowing back.
Palm oil is a massive one as well. Gold as well. Timber. All sorts of things have come out of there. You
don't get much timber on the Solomon Islands.
Well, you'll get less when they're all underwater.
Yeah, of course you will. Yeah, but
sport.
Nobody would care.
This is TalkSport. We are the two Mikes. Pete says this on Twitter. There's only one reason why Mike Parry buys high-rise properties, so he can look down on everyone.
No, that's
a very
not
good
true.
point, that.
No.
Steve says this. Can we send Porky to Canada? Because we don't care about his sympathy-seeking drivel. Cardiomyopathy is what you got, etc. William says, Solomon Islands, Seychelles, Maldives, and now Canada. Who cares? Is there no end to Porky's insults?
No, I'm not insulting anybody. I'm just trying to be practical and get the world into a proper focus, you know? Instead of everybody going around telling me things are happening in the world that aren't happening.
Yeah, all right.
And they only say it for their own benefit. They only say it, you know, to promote their own position.
Okay.
For goodness sake, somebody's got to stand up to the drivel. Huh?
Someone's got to stand up to your drivel, you mean?
You are.
Now, listen to this. Together with Mars, the Drive team are getting Moose musically match fit so that he can show his support and belief in the England team this summer in France.
Very good. A top singing coach has been enlisted to help him, and over the next few weeks, he will have to learn to sing We Love You, England, the chant in different styles that will put his tonal range to the test. Now, listen to Drive this afternoon from 4 p.m. to see what style Moose will be learning this week.
And you can also get involved by singing your support for England by posting your singing selfie videos of the We Love You England chant on Twitter using the hashtag Believe. So make sure you have a go. I think they could be working for some time on the Moose, trying to make him musically fit, and that's another story. Here, I'll tell you a weird thing that I saw today.
Yes.
Because I had to take my car in for a service, right?
Yes.
And you'll be delighted to know that it passed its service
Excellent.
with relatively flying
Well,
colours.
it wasn't an MOT, was it? It was just a service.
No, it doesn't have an MOT till October, but it passed its last one.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, the guy found, he cleaned out my air filter and said it was the worst air filter he'd ever seen.
Right. Is this for the air conditioning?
It's the way that the air conditioning works and all that.
Yes.
But it was really clogged up with kind of leaves and all sorts of muck and gunk and all the rest of it. And he said he'd never seen anything like it. But anyway, so that's all sorted out. So the car's even running better than it was before.
Yes.
However, when I was walking towards the place, which was down to just south of London,
right,
I came across this big van.
A van,
which was like a bouncy castle type van, right?
Yeah.
And it had all sorts of, writing on it.
Yeah, I see, yeah. So it goes off to
bouncy
parties
castles for hire, parties,
sure.
hen parties, this, that and the other. Then it says, balloons for rent and this, that and the other, flowers.
Yes.
And then, underneath all of that, it said funeral arrangements.
Funeral arrangements?
So the guy was not only doing bouncy castles, not only doing, party stuff, doing flowers, he was also doing funeral arrangements. I just thought...
Hang on, is that a suggestion he was taking a bouncy castle to a funeral?
Well, I don't think so. I think it was just...
That's what it suggests to me.
No, I don't think so. I think the idea was that, that not only did the company with the phone number on the van deal with bouncy castles and deal with flowers and deal with all sorts of parties, but actually you could also arrange your funeral through it as well. It just seemed to me to be a bit of an odd marketing ploy, really.
A very odd marketing ploy, in my view. Not something that I wouldn't want to get involved in, to be honest.
Graham in Bath says, once again, Porky showing his little islander mentality.
Oh, yeah, what's that then?
Of the people.
What's that? What is a little islander mentality? What's that?
Well, basically somebody who only cares about what goes on his little island, whether it's just you yourself or whether it's an actual geographical island, and the fact that you don't appear to care about anybody else in the world.
All I'm saying is,
I keep giving you a chance and you keep digging the hole that's bigger.
No, people spend hours, days, weeks, months, getting involved in these campaigns to save the world, and a lot of it's based on completely bogus information. It takes people like me to put their foot down and say, stop, I'm not going to be drawn into this ridiculous, illusion that the world's about to break up, that islands are sinking, that coastlines are disappearing.
You just finished telling us
it doesn't make any sense.
Well, you've just been telling us about all these plants that you care about that are disappearing that nobody's ever heard of.
Yeah, but we've got millions of plants on Earth.
Well, why are you worried about a few disappearing?
And by the way...
Well, hang on, so why are you worried about a few disappearing?
I'm not. I'm just merely telling you what's going on.
Oh, OK.
Now, let me tell you this as well, that I named 3 or 4 plants that are disappearing, OK?
Yeah.
It is believed there are still 4 billion plants in the world which have not yet been discovered. 4 billion, OK? Half of those are in the Amazon rainforest.
If they haven't discovered them, how do they know how many there are?
Because we believe that's how many are still to be discovered.
It's not actually a fact, then. But you're willing to spout that one as if it's true.
It's based on scientific research, OK?
Well, so is the fact that the Earth is rising in temperature, and the fact that the Earth's waters are rising in height as well.
I'm
but
not
you don't
sure
believe
about that.
those. How about this one from Sarah in Maidenhead?
Yes.
I've been trying to stick up for Mike Parry tonight, but after that conversation, why should I worry about his one life if he's not bothered about a whole island of people?
Well, look, I'm bothered about an island of people. All I'm saying is that you can't say, there's a crisis in the world just because a few more waves lapped onto a beach in the Solomon Islands. And the people in the Solomon Islands don't seem to be too bothered about it, because if they were, by now, Mr. Cameron... Excuse
you
me.
You can't actually get a sentence out of this
Hang
point.
on. Mr Cameron, who seems his favourite pastime as Prime Minister is sending billions of pounds to other countries, whether they need it or not.
Which he's just described as corrupt.
Which he then describes as
Did you see
corrupt.
that story today?
Yeah, I did, yeah. He described two
What do you
countries.
make of it?
Well, I have no idea.
Well, see, Downing Street's now saying that he did it deliberately.
Yeah.
That he somehow... I don't think he did.
But
I think he didn't... I think by saying what he said,
Yeah.
he hasn't got himself into any particular trouble. So it's convenient for them to say, oh, yeah, he kind of meant to do this because it's a sneaky way of getting it onto the agenda of this corruption summit.
Yeah.
Well, why do you need to sneak the fact that a country is corrupt onto a corruption summit?
I don't
Surely
know.
that's why you're having the corruption summit.
I don't know. Well, I mean, for instance, just to remind everybody about how generous we are in the world, India can now afford to turn down our second-hand aircraft carriers, right, when we finish with them and they're off to scrap or something like that, because they've now decided to build their own.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, and they've got their own space program, of course, India, and they've got one of the fastest-growing economies in the world after China.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, we are still sending them billions of pounds.
Yeah, but part of
in
that...
aid.
But again... you're just trying to seek populism here because you know very well that one of the reasons that these things get done and one of the reasons that aid is given to countries, which is a very, very tiny portion of the GDP of this country.
0.7%.
Tiny
That's
portion.
nearly 1%.
Yeah, it's a tiny portion.
Well, I think that's significant.
It's a tiny portion.
Well, I'd rather give it to pensioners in this country,
when
right?
you talk about a percentage, yeah, but you see, again, you're just trying to elicit sympathy from people
I'm
who
not.
are similarly ignorant like you are. The point about dealing with...
Ignorant about what?
Ignorant about the way the world works.
Right, and why do you think it's a good thing?
Well, I think it's a good thing because it encourages those countries to do trade with us. It encourages those countries to have links with us, which they still have through culture and through population, because an awful lot of people, don't forget, who live in this country have businesses in India and businesses here.
I know all that.
If you know all that, then why would you make such a ridiculously small-minded comment, which is to say that we must do away with any aid that we give to these countries?
I didn't say that. I said, look, how much
we'd rather give it to our pensioners.
Well, I would rather give it to pensioners. OK, how much money do we give to Germany?
I don't know how much money we give to Germany. We give money to the European Union.
How much money do we give to Germany?
I don't know.
Right, and do we trade with Germany?
Yes, we do.
Right, so we don't give Germany money to trade with them.
What?
So why do we give money to India to trade with them?
We give money to the European Union, billions and billions of pounds a year, far more money than we give to any foreign nation in terms of trade aid, right?
Yes, but that's
why don't you argue against that?
That's an investment in the trading block.
Oh, so it's an investment in the trading block.
That's right.
But it's just not. But to give a much smaller amount of money to India is not an investment in trade there. You can't have it both ways.
No, it may be partly an investment in trade there, but it's not designated as trading money. It's designated as overseas aid.
That's right, because that's the way that it works in this country.
Don't you think it was great when we read earlier this week that for the first time, because you and I lived there for so long in America, a guy has been pulled out of the East River with concrete boots on?
Oh, I saw that story.
Isn't that brilliant?
Well, it's not brilliant.
Isn't that brilliant?
I wouldn't describe it as brilliant.
It's not brilliant for the bloke who's got the concrete boots on.
Well, that's what I mean.
But I mean, doesn't it?
He was a gang member, apparently.
He was, yeah. I mean, but it really does, honestly. It now proves that the old concrete boots theory...
Well, I think it was proved before, because I think I'm right in saying
it's the first one they've ever found.
That there was two guys that they found, I thought, way back, one in the 40s and one in the 50s, who actually had, the old concrete overcoat on or something like that.
That's right.
That they found. But
yeah,
I don't think there was ever any doubt that kind of thing happened.
No, they said for the first time the man's been found at the bottom of the East River. Until this week, the infamous concrete shoes of underworld law had not been seen outside of a Hollywood film and crime books. But on Monday morning, a body washed up on a beach in South Brooklyn at the edge of a community college campus. The man's arms were bound behind his back. His head and much of his body was wrapped in duct tape. That's typical, isn't it, for the gangster killing, you know what I mean?
Right.
And plastic bags, duct tape and plastic bags. But his feet, ankles and lower shins were buried in a black plastic bucket of poured concrete. I mean, this is incredible.
How did he wash up on a beach then?
I suppose he sunk to the bottom of the river and then slowly the undercurrents have just pushed, moved him sideways, haven't they? Yeah, you know what I mean?
That's very surprising, though, because I thought the whole point of putting you in concrete boots was that you would go down to the bottom of the seabed.
Well, you do, and stay there.
Stay there.
Yeah, well, it just shifts. I mean, the seabed shifts all the time, doesn't it?
Exactly right.
Anyway, they found a large tattoo on his back, and they've now found out that he's Peter Martinez, known on the streets of Brooklyn as Petey Crack.
Oh, yeah.
OK?
Crack.
Petey Crack,
So I guess he was a crack dealer then.
Yeah, and he used to run with a group known as BMW, Brooklyn's Most Wanted.
Oh, yeah.
That's incredible.
Well, so probably no great loss to society.
Well, I wouldn't have thought so, but isn't it amazing that, all these years, that it's like finding the Yeti, isn't it?
No.
Do they really put gangsters' feet in buckets full of concrete
the Yeti.
And then throw them in the river? Well, they do. They do. It's amazing.
It's not amazing.
I mean, that means there could be like 24 or 3 dozen or 300
But this is my point.
bodies on the bottom of the river.
Well, then why haven't they washed up?
Well, because this is a rogue one. It's just been washed up.
Uh-huh. So your explanation for why it washed up isn't true then?
It is, yeah.
No, because then all the others would have washed up.
Maybe the guy who made the concrete got the wrong mix. Maybe he wasn't very good at it, you know what I mean?
Maybe so.
Yeah,
Very,
it wasn't
very
heavy
possible.
enough, you know?
Now, coming up...
Sleep with the fishes, that's the word.
But then get washed up.
Yeah,
But not with the fishes.
Yeah.
This is Talk Sport.
On DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM.
The pressure's on now.
Relieve the itch.
And we're going to kick off with Rich. As ever, we've got a few here, so I'm going to ask you to be as brief and informative as you can.
Of course.
Rich says this. Porky, I let a driver out a junction today, and he didn't give me the thank you hand.
Right.
Where do you stand?
Well, don't retaliate. I mean, bad manners is one of the worst aspects of driving, which can wind people up and boil their temperatures. But what you have to do is you have to grit your teeth and just say, "Okay, pal, next time, right? I'll do something about it. This time I'll let it go."
Well, isn't that retaliating?
No, it's not retaliating because it won't be the same
Do you
driver.
always give somebody a thank you hand if they let you through?
Always. They let me through, give them a hand, or I flash my lights. I think the best way to maintain your equilibrium in a car is to show as much care and consideration for your fellow driver as you possibly can. If you start trying to do the old macho thing and be the big guy and cut people up and all that, you will come to grief.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. Ashley says this: if you were to be on Come Dine With Me, who would you like for your 3 dinner guests?
You see, I've never been on Come Dine With Me. I don't know the format of it. But if you're asking me,
I think it would be you and 3 other people.
Me and 3 other people. Can they be alive or dead or what?
I would say keep them alive.
They've got to be alive,
yeah,
right?
Because that's more interesting.
Right, 3 people alive today who I'd like to dine with would be Mick Jagger. It would be also Dame Joan Collins.
Yeah.
And it would also, to get to a much more recent sort of star of everything that goes on in the world, Ross Barkley.
Ross Barkley?
Definitely, yeah, the Everton midfield player.
So you wouldn't have me there then?
No, I wouldn't have you there, no.
Okay.
No.
Lance says this: I didn't get the wife anything for our anniversary, only a card, and she's now holding out on the Rogerisation. What should I do?
Well, you made a mistake there, mate, because you see, you've got to understand the passions and persuasions of a lady. I once bought a girlfriend a card that had roses on the front. She said, "Thanks for the card, but I don't like roses." You know, didn't you know what sort of flowers I like?
Ooh,
which was a real smack in the face.
Yeah.
So you've got to get that right. Now, if you're saying that she would have liked something more than a card, then you should have been more sensitive to a lady's needs. Don't you understand that in a relationship with you and a lady, her needs are much, much greater than yours? You're only there to provide for your lady. If you're privileged enough to have a beautiful woman who is sharing your life, then at least treat her like a beautiful woman.
Okay, that seems fair enough. Here's one from TMU. He says, as you're seemingly at death's door, what songs and requests would you have at your funeral?
Well, I've never thought about it, because I've never thought about my funeral, to be honest. My funeral will happen...
I think you might have to start.
Well, maybe one of these days. I want to die very quickly, so that could be in any sort of circumstances. But anyway, at a funeral, it would obviously be Z-cars to exit the chapel, OK? But during the course of the ceremony, there would be Abide With Me, which is one of my favourite songs, Land of Hope and Glory.
Right.
We'd leave...
It's not as if you have a high opinion of yourself. Really.
No. We'd leave to Z-cars, and if there was one other tune needed and it involved singing, it would be Hey Jude.
Okay. Now, here's one from someone calling himself Chicken Burrow. He says, he's talking about the Venkies here.
Right.
The Venkies have ruined my club. He's obviously a Blackburn fan.
Yes.
How do I get rid of them?
Well, you can't, because they're total owners. And I think the chairman of the board is a lady who resides mostly in India, where she runs the family empire. And all you have, I think, is a representative presence in Lancashire, where Blackburn is. Blackburn, Lancashire, of course,
Yes,
John
indeed.
Lennon's song, Day in the Life.
Yeah.
Is a chief executive who reports to the bosses in India. I'm sorry, but sometimes you've got to accept that there is nothing you can do about the ownership of your club. That was the frustration that Newcastle United fans had for decades when they wanted the board out, and eventually, of course, they had to beware of what they wished for. They're not sure now that Mike Ashley is any better than the board they tried to oust under Freddie...
Shepherd,
thank you.
Although things might take a turn for the worse later on tonight if Sunderland beat Everton. More about that coming up. Simon in Sheffield, listening to our conversation recently, says, what's the best way to mix perfect concrete? Well, you were saying maybe that guy's concrete wasn't mixed properly.
Yeah, I'm not a builder, but what you do is you go and buy a bag of concrete, right, and then you open it, and you get a concrete mixer, a little machine, not a big lorry, and then you chuck 4 spadefuls of concrete powder in, 2 spadefuls of sand, and 1 spadeful of lime. That'll give you perfect concrete.
What about the water?
Oh, you put water in, obviously, with a hose. But, I mean, the mixture in the terms of the proportions is exactly how I told you.
All right.
That's why I studied urban estate management. One of the courses within the course was building.
Right.
Yeah.
Did everything on planks?
Could you just get on with the feature that we're doing, please, and stop being pathetic, stupid and childish?
Here's one from HK. What's the best way to protect a very expensive bird table?
Well, I've got a bird table and pigeons started landing on it and knocking it over, so I filled it full of more water and I put some weights in the bottom of the bird table. Yes. It cost me £37.50. Somebody sent me a photograph of a bird table from somewhere like Argos or something, or Wilkinson or something, for £8.50, which is similar to mine, but not as good.
Yeah.
Mine's heavier.
Except it blew over.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And I would say the best way to protect a bird table is to weight it to the ground, make sure there's plenty of water in it, and then, and this is what I do, I'm vigilant and I watch it for a few minutes, and if a pigeon lands, I make a very loud noise to scare the pigeon off. So the pigeon in future will associate landing on my bird table with a cracking noise like that, which means it thinks it's being shot, and therefore they'll stop using it.
So you make a clapping sound?
Yes, I do, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's one from Kalliang, who says, Porky, who's the most famous person in your phone book? I think he means your contacts book.
Yes. Who I could ring up?
Yeah.
Well, I don't like to boast about that.
He says you can't say it's you.
No, I don't like to boast about that.
Well, can you give us a hint?
Real secret. A hint.
Would it be an actor?
Actor.
Would it be a footballer?
Would it be a footballer? Would it be actress? I think I could probably get hold of... Well, I don't know, really. I mean, I don't like to boast about these things.
Well, don't have to boast.
It sounds big-headed.
Well, don't give the name out. Just give a
I
hint.
I see. Okay.
Give a hint as to who it would be.
Okay. I think I wouldn't have any problem at all in accessing a well-known actor of many TV shows, sometimes travel shows, sometimes great dramas, including one at the moment, which is currently...
It's not Robson Jerome, is it?
No, it's not Jerome. What's his name?
Robson Jerome.
No, it's not him. Currently just had the second of 4 in his latest drama.
Second of 4.
Okay, let's go on. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure people will be able to work that one out.
Yes.
Now, here's another show-busy type one from Tex. Should Paul Merton and Ian Hislop call it a day on Have I Got News For You?
I think Have I Got News For You is one of the worst programmes I've ever seen. How on earth it got an award for Best Comedy Show at the BAFTAs this week is... nobody knows.
No.
It completely mystified.
No.
It wasn't funny 15 years ago.
in many ways, when Angus Dayton left, it was never as good.
It wasn't funny 15 years ago. Yeah. It's even less funny now. And everybody's
it's all scripted as well.
Well, this is the whole point. Because we've had friends who've gone on there. Piers Morgan is one, of course, and they tried to stitch him up.
Yeah.
Now, Boris Johnson was another, and Boris Johnson broke the cardinal rule. He actually told everybody afterwards how it's all done. And that's where it emerged, that it's massively scripted, that they're all very much prepared jokes, that they practice them 2 or 3 times. There's nothing instinctive about it. There's a massive amount of editing because they're pre-recorded. And in fact, the show is a very, very pale imitation when you see it and you think you're watching it live to what it really is.
Yeah. Dear Porky, this one might be a bit troublesome
fraudulent almost, really.
Says Pierre, please can you tell us the correct pronunciation of the Leicester City chairman's name?
No, I can't.
No.
Because frankly, I am not that enamoured by any other football club except my own to want to learn how to pronounce a chairman's name. No, I can't. No.
All right.
I don't want to.
Here's one from Nick. I'm meeting my girlfriend's father the first time at a wedding.
Yeah.
Should I behave myself or get absolutely bladderated?
Well, you've got to work out what his social habits are. This is the best thing, you see, and you've got to do it in cohorts with him. Now, if he's a teetotaler, you be a teetotaler on the day. That will impress him. If, however... you have a bit of luck and you find out that the boy likes a drink, then you're in strong territory because you should be able to outdrink him with your youth and your ability to absorb alcohol, and therefore you have a few drinks. And the best way to pull one over on a potential father-in-law in that situation is to drink him under the table, and he will be embarrassed about his behaviour for the rest of the tenure that you have as potential son-in-law. You've got the upper hand. Drink him under the table.
Yeah. Here's one from Jay. I'm a food critic incapable of thinking on my feet. Can you help me improve my civility dealing with this affliction?
I should get onto a show called The Two Mics. I should ring them up, tell them that you're prepared to talk about the cost, right, of a bag of frozen peas in Tesco's. And if they ask you about the cost of a bag of frozen peas in Marks and Spencer's, refuse to answer and put the phone down.
OK. Here's one from Mark. My work colleague keeps calling me an idiot. He happens loads of times during the day. Should I give him a slap around the back of the forehead?
No, that's probably creative tension in a show. I work with several people. You know, one or two you know about and one or two you probably won't remember and one or two you won't know about because it's for other organisations and that sort of thing. And I find that I have a different assessment of each of the partners I work with. Some are professional and highbrow, others are fat, juice-headed, four-eyed numpties.
OK. Davey says this. What do you call the situation when music you're playing on your musical device on shuffle becomes a pattern?
I've no idea what you're talking about. I don't know how to make my...
Have you got music on your device?
I don't know. I've never tried to access it. If you're talking about my information device, which is my Samsung phone, why would I want to play music on it? I've got better things to do than stick...
Well, you could have the greatest hits of the Beatles on there.
No, it's rubbish. Look, when I'm on the move, I've got better things to do than stick an earplug in my ear and listen to music. I've got journals to read. I've got information to access. I wouldn't be listening to music. I hate people I see on trains going to work or coming home from work who are either listening to music or reading a novel. It means that their heads are so empty and their lives are so useless.
You don't like people reading novels?
No.
Why not?
Because they should be catching up with business and work and information, not reading novels. They're numpties.
You are a plank, aren't you? Here's one from White. He says, apart from Gordon Ramsay, which famous celebrity is envious of your communication style and your articulation?
Well, a lot of them, I would think. Yeah. A lot of them, I would think. A lot of people listen to this show. I was amazed to find out that Stephen Hendry is a huge fan of the show.
Yes.
And, you know, people like him. Now, we don't know every celebrity who listens to us, but we do know there's a fair few of them out there because they talk to each other.
No, absolutely right. Now, if you had your own band, says TMU, well, what would be the name of it?
The Zulus.
The Zulus?
Yes. I once designed a cover because I was going to form a band and I was going to be the lead singer.
Of course you were going to be the
lead singer. And lead guitarist, yeah. So we're going to call it the Zulus.
So you can't play the guitar?
No, I never got around to learning, but no. I always had ambitions to do so.
Yes.
Right.
Well, that's it. That's Porky.
Okay.
Ask Porky for another week. We'll
Delighted to have helped.
More help for everybody next week, same time. Of course, it's Porky Vision tomorrow.
Yes.
And we have to talk about the Porky quiz coming up next because we think we may have found the answer to what we're doing, but we may not have. This is Talk Sport.
The Two Mics. Simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Solanum albanozolili. Solanum albanozolili. The Bermuda bean has a volatility.
These are some of the things that may be disappearing from our planet, but don't worry, nobody cares. Porky was giving us his lowdown on that a little bit earlier on. Here's one from Craig, who says, Porky's concrete mix sounds worse than what that man in the river had in his bucket.
Oh, yes, why?
Because I don't think he's saying that your concrete mix is going to work.
Well, OK, is there a building expert out there then who can perhaps... you know, if they think they know better than me, just get on the phone and let us know, will you?
Very possibly. David says...
Put up or shut up, OK?
Right. There's no need to be rude. Yeah. David says, I used to like How I Got News for You, but Paul Merton has been on autopilot for years. Raymond says, bodies release gas when a body decomposes, so even with the concrete shoes, a body could rise to the surface like a balloon.
No, it couldn't.
Well, I don't know about that.
No, because the bones would still be, you know, embedded in the concrete and all that kind of stuff. I'm afraid that all the flesh eventually disappears. And, of course, one of the reasons why it's entitled Dining with the Fishes is
Sleeping with the Fishes.
Sleeping with the Fishes.
Not dining with the fishes.
Well, the fishes are dining on you while you're down there,
Solomon Islands.
Yeah.
Hear about this from Carl. Cheers, Porky. You've just given me a crap recipe for brick mortar, not concrete.
Eh?
Apparently that was brick mortar you gave a recipe for.
No. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's what I thought he wanted.
No,
I thought he wanted.
No, the question was about concrete.
No, it was about concrete. You're right. Yeah. Sorry,
and
it is concrete.
And somebody has posted a very nice picture of some concrete Wellington boots in a big block of concrete.
Yes.
But he says he doubts even if you put yourself into it that you would sink to the bottom of the Thames.
Oh, yeah, why is that?
Scott, I don't know what his point is there.
You know, when we used to work in the building on the other side of Blackfriars Bridge.
On this side of Blackfriars Bridge?
Well, this side, yeah, but I mean, I'm the other side from the tube station, which was then Blackfriars, okay?
Yeah.
And I used to walk over there sometimes, and I have to say, you know, the barriers on the sides of the bridge are not that high. And sometimes I'd walk over and look at the river below, and there's something mesmeric.
There is.
I can understand why people... You know, when they've got disturbed minds and all that, throw themselves off bridges into rivers.
Well, especially if you look into the river and you start to notice... I mean, I spend a lot of time at the river, obviously, because I live right next to it.
Yes.
And you notice little whirlpools.
That's right.
Sometimes the way that the tide is coming in and bits of it are going out, and there's little rivulets. I mean, it's fascinating.
I agree.
And lots of boats to look at as well.
Yeah.
Saw a beautiful little sort of millionaire's boat actually going down the river the other day.
Oh, yeah?
You know those ones, I mean, not like Adnan Khashoggi style.
No, sure.
But one that would probably cost about £1 million.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I would say it was about 40 foot long.
Yeah.
You know, little motor launch. It was very nice.
Very nice
Very
indeed.
nice indeed.
Yeah.
Here's one from Urban Spaceman who says, as Porky is so dismissive of rising sea levels, perhaps he'd like to explain the raison d'etre of the Thames flood barrier.
That's been lowered how many times in the last 20 years?
Well, it's been lowered an awful lot. It's been closed an awful lot, at least I would say twice a year in the past 5 years.
No,
definitely.
I think it's only been closed twice.
I live very near it.
In 7 years.
No, it's been closed a lot more than that.
Yeah, but I mean, what I'm saying is, closed to the effect of preventing flood, it hasn't been closed at all.
Yeah, but it has. That's why they close it.
No, it hasn't. No,
they do close it.
No, it's a precaution. That's a precaution.
It's there to stop the place from flooding. Because I'll tell you what, the street in which I live, rather high street, down further down,
would be flooded.
There's a pub down there which has got a high water mark, and the high water mark is the level of the actual pub.
What's it called?
I can't remember the name of the pub, but the level of the bar is where the water used to come up to.
You know,
since the Thames barrier has been brought in, it doesn't flood anymore.
You know the one on Wapping High Street?
Yeah.
Is it the Marquis of Granby? No, Prospect of Whitby.
The Prospect of Whitby. That's where they used to chain people up and drown them.
They did.
Yeah.
They did. If you went to the balcony at the back of the pub and at low tide...
The chain's still there, isn't it?
Chain's still there. There was a pole sunk into the shale.
Yeah.
And they strapped you to that, and then everybody came out with their drinks and sat there while the tide came in and watched you drown very slowly.
Yes.
And when you were crying for mercy as the water was literally
swirling around,
it got up to your neck, and then you had to push your neck up, and then you daren't open your mouth in case the water went in, and then eventually the water went into your mouth, and then you
sounded a bit like you before the show.
Yeah,
well, you know the Clink, that prison, which is round the back of sort of Southwark Cathedral.
Yes, I do.
It's between the Globe Theatre and London Bridge.
Yes,
I took the kids in there once,
right.
and that was a prison.
Right,
and basically people would die in there every time it was high tide because they'd be they would be submerged underwater, and they would be in sort of prison type conditions, so they couldn't escape.
So that was a deliberate ploy, was it, to kill them?
Yeah. And then every so often they'd chuck them all into the river, and then they'd lock up a few more people.
It's not very nice.
It's not very nice at all.
You know, sometimes when I get the boat up the river, I'm going up to see Mr. Brazil in Canary Wharf or something.
Oh, you get the boat sometimes. Great ride, that.
You can get the boat on the other side of Blackfriars Bridge from the pier there, right? You know, it stops there and it goes up. And you actually, if you go the other way, past the tower, right, the Tower of London.
Yeah.
No, sorry, on the way up on the Tower.
So you mean if you go west?
Yes. You can actually pass that gate which says, "Give up hope, all ye who pass through." Who enter?
Well,
is it pass through?
Traitor's Gate. You're talking about.
Traitor's Gate.
Yeah.
God, I mean that's chilling.
Yeah.
Because
the chills.
In the
just saying it.
In the 1600s, people were rowed towards Traitor's Gate, and that meant you'd had it.
Yeah.
Not only were you going to die, but you're going to die incredibly painfully.
And you were locked in the tower for a while before you died.
Yeah, you're going to be put on the rack.
Have you never been inside the Tower of London?
Yeah, of course I have. Yeah. You're going to have your back burnt on hot coals. You were going to have your toenails extracted.
Not everyone had that happen.
Oh, a lot of them did. It was
I thought
awful.
you quite liked talking about torture.
Oh, it's terrible.
Dave says this, Porky, I'm a big fan, but concrete doesn't come in bags. It's actually cement. I know this because I work for a concrete firm.
Really? Well, maybe...
So you can't buy concrete.
What do you mean?
You have to make it.
Yeah,
that's what you're saying.
I know that.
You said the first thing you should do is buy a bag of concrete.
No, I meant like cement. That's what I said.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, look, why do you think they have concrete mixers? That's to make concrete.
Make concrete.
Exactly.
From cement.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Well, I knew that process.
Okay.
Don't worry about that.
Now, we talked about the quiz a little while ago because we said why not do it on Pirates. However, it has been suggested that your favourite film is about to celebrate its 30th anniversary.
Indeed.
Right? Top Gun.
I think we should do a quiz on Top Gun.
Being your favourite film. So I think we should do Top Gun this week.
I
Maybe
agree.
do Pirates next week.
Yeah, that's good.
I shall inform the independent quizmasters.
Yes, please, if you would,
over the next 24 hours, and they can put a quiz together.
If they've started questions on piracy, then tell them to defer that to next week, please.
Excellent.
Okay.
Now,
we'll
I've
find
got to read
a piracy anniversary.
I've got to read you something else from Derek in Pencoed. Who says, on last night's show, Porky said he wanted two kinds of planes, one for people who travel first and business class, and one for economy.
Yeah.
Sounds like he thinks he's making out that he is too good to travel with people like me. He is a snob. The next thing, he will want the first-class carriage on a train completely sealed off from the rest of the train, and he claims to be a man of the people. Doesn't sound like that to me. Now, funny that he should say that.
Exactly.
Because
some very bad news.
Apparently, for those people who like to travel first-class on trains, there is bad news.
Yeah.
Because on the main line, the West Coast main line, they're saying that first-class carriages could be scrapped
altogether
at peak times.
Can't believe
to
it.
ease overcrowding. So, if you're ever going to be travelling, say, up from London up to Manchester or up to Glasgow,
I know.
you're not going to get a first-class ticket. I think that's hilarious.
It says here, first-class carriages could be scrapped at peak times to ease overcrowding on long
just said
railway
that.
journeys.
I've just said that.
I know. Train operators are being told to consider skipping stations to make sure services reach big cities such as London on time.
Yeah.
Oh my
So what
God.
would you do if you were presented with the opportunity to get a first-class ticket and you were told, I'm sorry, sir, there are no first-class seats on this train?
I don't think it'll ever happen. I think it's one of those scare stories, honestly. It'll never happen.
One of those scare stories.
How can it happen?
This from a guy who's been telling us that there's going to be no more coffee in the world.
No, that's right.
That all these trees are going to disappear. And that terrible things are going to befall us. I think it will happen.
No, it won't happen.
Because I think it's a good idea because
can't happen.
there is too much overcrowding on trains.
Yeah, but I know.
I mean, I once took a train to Stansted Airport.
Oh, pity you didn't stay there.
From King's Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I wouldn't stay at airport, would I?
Well, you might, get a cheap flight to Holland and maybe stay there. Anyway,
Really?
go on,
Yeah, well, then what would you do?
What'd you see? What do you mean?
What would you do? What would you do?
What would I do?
If I went to Holland?
Well, I couldn't care less where you went,
Really?
mate. You go and live where you want. That's,
Okay. I think these drugs you're taking have made you even ruder than you normally are.
I don't think.
Anyway, no, the point is that I got on this train and it was mobbed with people. And inexplicably, because it was quite a small train to Stansted, there was... Actually, no, I tell you, I was to Luton. There was a little section of first-class seats, which only numbered about 10 or 12.
Yeah.
And I organised a sort of mutiny because there was nobody in there.
So,
and I said, right, we're all going to go stand in there because there was no standing room only. And so I and about 5 other people just went in and sat in first class, and we said, if somebody comes in, we're just going to say, we're here because you haven't given enough space for us to travel on.
But it didn't happen.
Well, nobody bothered us.
Yeah, well, there you go, you see.
That's what people should do.
Yeah.
This is Talk Sport.
Like something red, the sidewalks in the street, the concrete and the clay beneath my feet begins to crumble, but love will never die, because we'll see the mountains tumble before we say goodbye.
Steve has corrected me when he said he was not in any way sympathetic to your cardiomyopathy. He said actually what he called it was cardiomyopathy. So he's suggesting that you're making it all up, you see.
Oh, I see, really?
Yes.
Oh, that's very nice, isn't it? So mock the afflicted who've got, potentially fatal diseases and make little jokes about them and,
Well, you don't elicit, see,
when
the
I
trouble
speak
is,
the truth,
you don't elicit any sympathy because you're such an unlikable character.
Oh, that's
because you spent the entire
rubbish.
3 hours denigrating, millions of people
that's rubbish.
around the world
That's
who you
rubbish.
say you don't care about.
No, I'm not having
Canadians, people
yeah.
from the Solomon Islands, people in the Seychelles.
Well,
I think were included.
Yeah, well,
people in Norwich.
I'm sorry, but all I do is tell it like it is. And if that affects the sensibilities of some people, then it's hard luck. Okay?
Some people are... Well, this is exactly why you don't get any sympathy. That's my point.
I do get a lot of sympathy.
Really?
It's just that you can't read it properly because, your brutal sort of, life's got to be acidic type approach is not the sort of approach
Brutal.
that I have. Yeah.
Is that, you think that's a bit more projection?
No, I don't
I'm
think
the
so at all.
kindest and most well-meaning person you've ever met.
Don't forget to come back tomorrow for another sparkling, as fizzy as a bottle of champagne podcast from the two mics. Has a volatility. Solanum alba nozzolilili. The Bermuda bean.
If you love the Two Mics podcast, you'll love the live show. Weekday overnights from 1am on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM and via the TalkSport app. TalkSport, your Premier League station with exclusive commentaries every weekend.
What an absolute corker!
TalkSport.
You don't get much timber on the Solomon Islands.
Well, you'll get less when they're all underwater.
Yeah, of course you will.
This is
Yeah, but
TalkSport.
nobody would care.